think Tevez going to Juventus, what a coup that was for me. I mean,
on a head-to-head battle, Atletico Madrid can do more damage to Barcelona than the other way around.
Either he's really blind or he's fixing the match. I can't see it any other way.
I'm trying to get Sir Bob on my side here by saying City will win the Premier League.
it is an upset. You would expect Man United to go and win there.
Over $1 billion was paid in transfer fees between the clubs in Europe.
It's football. It's damn football. Like Ferguson said, football. Bloody marvellous.
Yeah, well, the celebration was, I can't believe I just scored against Mexico. At one point, Parma, I think it's only like 224 players under contract. Hey, they want to throw me out of here, fellas. You're going to get me arrested on your show.
If you're a serious talent, you're going back and you're playing for Santos. You know, you're going back to play for, like in Argentina, for River Plate or Boca Juniors, or you're going to Europe.
He looked like the Ryan Giggs of old. He was more creative than any player on the pitch. He made Mata look stupid. He made Rooney look silly.
Now, the Premier League is the most exciting league out there. I think it's probably the best marketed league without a question.
When you look at the draw for the Champions League, you kind of say, well, all the pieces kind of fell into place for everybody except City.
I am your host, Joe Usello.
Sir Bob, Mike Orr. My co-host, Rob Rojas.
My trusted co-host, Ben the Machine. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 102 of Low Limit Football on this December 14th, 2015. I am your host, Joe Usello, and glad to be back after a great week of football again. We had drawings happening this morning in UEFA Champions League and Europa League. We had the draw happen over the weekend for the Euro 2016. Did your team get screwed? I know mine certainly did this weekend, or actually this morning, so we'll have to see how that turned out. My nationality also got screwed a little bit, so we're going to talk about that a little later on in the program. We have a couple of great guests here for you tonight. We have joining us again, and again, another, I don't know why he keeps coming back, but we love to have him. Jonathan Johnson from BeIN Sports will be joining us in about 15 minutes or so, and we're going to discuss UEFA Champions League, and we're going to discuss the Euro with him, and maybe some French football. And then a little later on tonight, we were able to pre-record an interview with Robert Burns, which we will definitely play for you guys. We had a fantastic discussion with him, and it is full of information. So can't wait to play that for you folks as well. Hopefully, I haven't logged into the chat room yet, but I believe most of the usual suspects are back. I do see Edmund Neeson. I do see Zach Drapekin in there as well. Thanks for coming in tonight, guys. We really appreciate having you on, and glad you could join us for the last show of the year. I'm going to send it over to Rob Rojas. Rob, what's going on, man, and how was your week?
Oh, it was great. It was fantastic. And let's just hope for one more good show of the year and hope to continue doing this heading into 2016.
At least the man's not keeping you down tonight, right?
For once, yes.
Awesome. And then up to the Great White North, Mike Orr. Mike, what's going on?
Hey, Joe, how you doing? You need some wine or some cheese to go with that wine?
Nope. Italians make the best wine anyway, so. Come on. Bayern Munich? Really? Bayern Munich.
I bet you Bayern Munich's not so happy they drew Juventus either, though.
Maybe, but we had to do Sevilla, Mönchengladbach, and City in the group stage, which was obviously the group of death. We all said that right up front. Now they get out of that, and not for nothing, I want to add, by their own fault. Okay?
You got to win that group. City found out how important that is. Today.
You know it. Because if they would have won that group, which they were in control, all they had to do was beat Sevilla, which they should have done. They would have won the group, and we wouldn't be talking about Bayern Munich today. You know, we'd be talking about Kiev, right?
And actually, wouldn't even I think a draw have been good enough in that game.
I think so.
That's right.
I think so. But you know, and on top of it all, I think to add insult to injury and rub salt in the wound, the guy that scores the one goal in the 1-0 Sevilla victory, Fernando Llorente. So, you know, you send him away, you send him to Sevilla, and he comes back and bites you. And
Karma.
She's not cool, Karma. She is really not cool. So, you know, it sucks. But you never know. I mean, like you said, Mike, Bayern's probably got to be sitting there going, you know, we won the group. We did everything we had to do, and what did we get? The runner-up from last year's final.
The best second-place team.
The best second-place team. That's true.
Yep. I think they're better than PSG, so yep.
Yeah, I mean, for me, even as a Juventus fan, it's 50-50. I think it's very, very close. But yeah, you know, if you said they were the second best second place team, still, you're talking about drawing those top teams. I mean, and PSG, not.
It isn't 100 to 44. I'll tell you that. That means the bookies are making Bayern Munich more than a 2-1 favorite to win this series.
Yeah. I would bet Munich for the easy money. I'm a Juventus fan. I bet Munich for the easy. And again, it's a little premature. The draw happened 12 hours ago.
Yep.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the first match is not going to be played for almost 2 months.
Yeah. So anything can happen. The transfer windows and everything like that.
Exactly. Although as
there's only so many star players you can bring in that aren't already cup tied at this point, though.
Right, Mike. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is that you could bring in some help, but that quote unquote help is probably somebody you're going to use in the domestic league to give your guy.
Yeah, that helps depth. That's what they. There could be I'm sure there are 1 or 2 names that we're not thinking of that aren't cup tied, but that's it.
Yeah, yeah, and literally, I think the list is that long. It's probably a couple names. You go down. I mean, let's even look at England. Let's go to Everton. Is Everton going to let go of Romelu Lukaku right now? No chance, right? No. But he would probably be the guy that maybe you're looking for a big striker. Okay, he's a guy that certainly would probably be at the top of a wish list. You'd have to throw ridiculous amounts of money at Everton to even consider getting him pulled away, and Everton's not going to let him go.
Definitely 2 players.
So being Europa Cup tied doesn't necessarily make you
Champions League Cup tied.
Champions League Cup tied? Okay.
All right. Here's another name. Let's talk about a striker that's in form. Let's talk about a guy that actually scored today. Jamie Vardy. Is Leicester going to let go of Jamie Vardy where they're almost halfway through the season and in first place? They're in the driver's seat. Would they even consider letting this guy go at this point?
Absolutely not.
No.
Even if you give $100 million.
Yeah. Mike, you're our EPL guy. Would Leicester let him go?
I say no, but I have also been around not that long, but long enough to know you never say never in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Kasper Schmeichel, would they let go of him? I highly, 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 highly doubt it.
Right, I do too. But remember when we were kids, Joe? Did you ever think Wayne Gretzky was going to get traded?
No, I know. No, that's true.
In the prime of his career.
But again, the Rangers had money at the time. Remember?
See, but that's what you just can never say never. I wouldn't put anything on it. I'm saying no, but
another guy.
If someone did sweep in with $100 million, it's going to be pretty hard to say no for a team like Leicester.
How about a guy that just showed up in Milan and Carlos Bacca?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a bargain right there.
Sure,
if anyone can get it, but they wouldn't sell him.
Young. I mean, they've got a nice crop of strikers at AC Milan who wouldn't be cup tied. But again, Milan they're knocking on that Champions League and Europa League door. Do they really want to part with those guys that are going to score all those goals for them? I don't think so. They're in the middle of rebuilding. Mihailovic would lose his mind, I would bet, if that happened. So it's tough. And Mike, you're right. Are there guys out there that could help? Yeah, of course. But are you going to be able to pry them away? That is the big, big, big question.
And basically pay a huge ransom for what, like a hired gun for the Champions League?
Right. That's what it would come down to. It's almost like the baseball playoff run. Remember where they go and they get the big arm. David Cohn was big for this, where they would just
David Price this year for the Blue Jays.
Yeah. So they go out and rent a player.
That's what he turned out to be because they didn't re-sign him. So yeah.
Right. So but that could be a possibility. A team might look to do that. But I think, Mike, what you said was spot on, where these teams are going to start to look at adding depth. They know what they've got running up against them moving forward into the Champions League and the Europa League. They want to add that depth so that they can kind of lay up on those domestic games. And a team like Juventus saves Paulo Dybala and saves Alvaro Morata and saves Mario Mandzukic for those big matches against Bayern Munich, where they can hope to steal a goal on the road leg and lock it down at home and hopefully get through. So,
and let's be fair, Juventus is probably already deep enough that they don't really need to do anything. Unless they're bringing in someone to actually, go out and try and win. But really, their roster's deep enough to play domestically and the rest of the Champions.
They are, but I think they would at the same time still want to add somebody.
Yeah, well, that just goes without saying, right? Everybody wants to add somebody.
Yeah, and probably a midfielder, though.
To make up for losing Pogba next year?
No, because they're not losing him, damn it. Let's not go down that road. So, I don't know. It's tough.
Maybe we bring in Pogba, give you all kinds of money, and Fabian Delph, and there you go. You're all set. Now you groom yourself another Pogba.
Oh, no thanks. Fabian.
He's pretty good.
Compared to Pogba?
We need to see, but I'm just saying he's pretty good.
We need to see a bit more of him, honestly.
Compared to Pogba and 100 million euros, yeah, it's a good deal.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't think Juve would go for it. They're not big sellers. They're buyers. So, no, it's true.
I agree. I'm not saying, but saying, imagine how much you could buy with an extra 100 million in the kitty.
Yeah. So guys, we've rambled on here for so long for this segment. I guess we might as well just make that our opening thoughts, huh? I mean, I wanted to do something real quick about, reflecting on 2015. And I guess we can still, if you want to do the 30-second version.
I'm pretty sure we were all going to say Sergio Aguero and his 5 goals anyway, right?
Yeah, and we weren't. So, no, but
that was mine, obviously. Yeah. It was just as obviously Lewandowski had done it the week before, but I'm not a fan of the team he plays for. I'm a fan of Manchester City, and so when Sergio Aguero does it, it was much bigger for me. And I guess also Rob had mentioned, well, who would be the next guy we think might be able to do it? And then obviously that's my go-to answer for almost everything. Mm-hmm. And I said Sergio Aguero, and less than a week later he goes out and does it. So that even makes it more special.
Calling your shot a la Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. So you went with favorite moment. And just to let the listeners know what the opening thoughts is going to be was reflections on world football in 2015. It was a very vague topic, and I had listed in there in quotes, favorite moment, something you learned, just anything, but just to have the floor individually uninterrupted to say what you wanted to say for a minute. So you went with favorite moment and Sergio Aguero, which certainly was a great moment. Like you said, called your shot. I said, who's the next guy to do it? And you said, you piped right in, Sergio Aguero. And then a week later, Sergio Aguero scores 5 goals. So it was just, it was your Babe Ruth moment in life, I think. I don't know if you'll ever get another.
I liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely your favorite moment, that's for sure. So Rob, same thing to you. Reflections on world football in 2015. Favorite moment, something you learned? Go for it.
Well, we learned that FIFA is indeed corrupt, and we can confirm that now, considering all the arrests that have been happening to various people in the company. But honestly, just leaving out of that, we were able to see the dominance of a trio up front at Barcelona, like Messi, Suarez, and Neymar, just dominated and wiped the floor over every other opponent that faced them. Mm-hmm. And then that final against Juventus, it was just world class. And who knows, this probably might confirm Neymar as the right successor as when Messi and Ronaldo's rivalry is over with, as the next best player in the world.
That's true. And to win a second treble at Barcelona, especially Messi's second treble, but for those guys winning their first is certainly an amazing accomplishment and certainly one of the biggest moments, I'd say, of 2015.
Definitely. It's once in a generation, I guess you could say that. But to have it done twice in 6 years is just incredible.
Yeah, we're living in a great time.
Yes,
for football,
we shouldn't argue about which one is better, like Messi or Ronaldo. We shouldn't fight over that. We should just be privileged to see 2 once in a lifetime players, once in a generation players at the best of their careers.
I was going to say we shouldn't argue about Messi or Ronaldo. We'll argue about Aguero versus Pogba. I think that'll be the better argument. No,
probably Pogba and Torre would be the better argument.
Yeah, almost.
Considering they play the similar position.
So I'm stealing the floor for a minute here then. And for me, mine was sort of something you learned, and something I learned along the way. One thing that doing this show, and especially became more prominent this year in 2015 with the African Cup of Nations, with the being more in tune to the Copa Libertadores and the Copa Sudamericana, watching the Copa America and all of those different competitions, is the one thing that I've learned, and even up until this morning with our discussion, the one thing that we all have in common, whether we are football players, whether we are journalists, whether we are podcast hosts, whether we just like to sit on our couch on Saturday morning after we've eaten a big breakfast and like to watch a game, is that we all have passion.
Yes.
We all have passion for the game. We all have passion for the players on the field. We have passion for the rules. We have passion for the tournament draws. We have passion for the television rights. We have passion for all of it. And it's something that sometimes can go a little over the top as an individual. It can be perversed into something as sick as racism when we see people do like that. Do those types of things and chant those things, which part of our discussion this morning was the the banning of City fans at Dinamo Kiev because of the racism, and it's an unfortunate part of the passion, and it's unfortunate that exists, and hopefully one day we will all see it gone, but I want to see the racism gone and not the passion behind the racism, because the passion is important. The passion is the reason FIFA is being ripped apart at the seams right now by the federal government. The passion is the reason people are on my Twitter feed day in and day out asking for promotion and relegation in MLS. But the passion is also the reason I've started to watch more German Bundesliga, and why I've started to watch more Argentinian league, and why I've started to watch these other leagues and these other groups, because the passion is in those players, and those players come out with quality, and they give you their best day in and day out. It is completely obvious. We watched the Liguilla final last night between Tigres and Puma, and there was passion there, passion enough that Pumas, down 3-0, managed to come all the way back and tie it up to lose in extra time. That's the kind of passion that this game gives us all, and we should all embrace it and enjoy it, because there are those people out there and those things that can ruin that. There are the criminal end and the racist end and all of that stuff that can sour what we love and what we have passion for. And hopefully this that we, as passionate, understanding football fans, journalists, podcasts, players, coaches, whatever, referees, can at least hold on to that passion and be there. So that's my 2 minutes of ranting, I would say.
That was beautiful, man.
Sorry. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, passion is what drives this game.
Yeah.
All of us around the world.
How about you, Mike?
Man.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Everything's driven by passion. This is, every game's passionate.
True, but sometimes,
and it doesn't have the racism that soccer has. So,
yep. Do you, Mike? Do you want to give us a trivia question real quick? I know Jonathan is ready for us.
Okay. Romelu Lukaku recently scored his 50th EPL goal versus Aston Villa, becoming the 5th player to score 50 Premier League goals before the age of 23. Name the other 4.
Oh, damn it! I saw the list too. I know one.
I know one too.
I know one. I know 2. And they flashed this, and the guy at the top of the list, I can't remember, but it was like 92 goals, and I can't remember his name. Oh, Mike, you. Oh, if I knew you were going to ask it, I would have taken a picture. Oh, man. I got 2. I know I definitely have 2 solid, so I'm going to run with that. But, Rob, you think you have 2?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Hello.
Well, joining us now on Low Limit Football, returning to us, is Jonathan Johnson. Jonathan, how are you tonight?
I'm very good, thanks. And yourself?
Fantastic. And we're glad to hear from you. I do want to open our quick little discussion with the events in Paris just a few weeks ago. Obviously, you were at the park. Actually, you were at the Stade de France, if I remember correctly, for the French matchup against Germany, if I remember the game correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like your thoughts. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the events as it unfolded as the match was going on.
Yeah, well, it was just a very surreal atmosphere to be in, really. 20 minutes into the game, you hear the first explosion. It's not something that's completely unfamiliar to people who watch football in France, certainly not in Paris for those who are regulars at Parc des Princes. But it was a lot louder than your normal sort of firecracker explosion. For me personally, somebody who's used to hearing that on a week. The clock, and I did notice it when it happened. And then, after that, when the second one goes off, that's when you really start to ask questions. But it wasn't really until halftime.
Jonathan, you're breaking
the journalists start perhaps drawing parallels with small bomb blasts. It was only then at halftime that people really started out with, the sounds that they were hearing and bomb blasts, and then we started to discover round about halftime, that something had happened outside of Stade de France, and obviously by then things had started to unfold in central Paris as well. So after that, it was very difficult for anyone who knew about what was happening outside of Stade de France to concentrate on France-Germany, the match that was on the pitch. But it was quite clear at the same time that a number of the supporters didn't really have a guide at the stadium, and that the players also didn't know.
Now, how is the mood, especially now that we've returned to live football in Paris and in France in general? How is the mood of the fans going and attending these matches?
Well, I think there's a degree of caution for fans before they go to games. Still no away supporters allowed in France. This weekend will be the first time that any teams have been able to take travelling fans with them. There are certain matches that still will not be able to have away supporters in attendance, but for the most part across Ligue 1 and Ligue 2 there will now be away fans in stadiums. So football is approaching a return to some sort of state of normality, but obviously security is a lot higher than it was before the attacks, and that changes people's experiences of games a little bit. I think it was also quite telling, the Champions League game against Shakhtar Donetsk last week. It was a dead rubber match. But I'm sure plenty of people would have gone to it had the attacks not happened, and because of that, I think there's many games now that people are looking at wondering whether they really fancy going to the stadium to watch it, or whether they just prefer to stay home and follow it on television. So perhaps there will be some games where the attendance is adversely affected. But like I said about the Shakhtar game, it was a match where there was very little riding on it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a sad new reality that we have to live in. I remember that from 9/11, where just venturing out and into big cities suddenly became not so much a risk, but certainly you were much more cautious. And today you're much more cautious of your surroundings and the people that are around you, especially in large crowded spaces. So, but again, we are grateful and we're thankful that you are safe and sound and able to do what you do best, which is talk about world football. So I do want to start off with a French question pertaining to the Euros. I've got the Euro part of the interview this evening. And first and foremost, I want to talk about Karim Benzema. And my question to you is, will Karim Benzema play for France next summer?
I think there is still a chance that he will play for France, but I wouldn't put it anything, above 50%. In fact, I think saying 50-50 at the moment on Benzema's future for France, certainly as far as the Euros are concerned, is quite generous. I think there's a very good chance actually that Benzema won't play at the Euros because I don't think that this will be cleared up in time. I think at this moment in time, it does seem like they have time on their side in order to take care of this. But knowing France in the way that I do with these sorts of issues, these things take time and they don't get fixed overnight. And I can see this dragging on for some time. And I think it will either go right to the wire with Benzema, or it won't be resolved at all by the time the Euros come around. So I think at the moment Didier Deschamps is facing up to the reality or at least the possibility that he will have to go into the Euros without one of his star men.
Okay. Now, keeping the focus on the Euro 2016, one thing that I had heard proceeding through qualifying, especially over the summer and the fall here, and even into the playoff matches, is that the field of 24 is oversaturated. That there are too many teams at 24. It was something that Michel Platini wanted to make more money, for the Euro, and it's oversaturated. And some of these teams that we're seeing get into the Euro 2016, like the likes of Albania, even Slovakia, some of these other teams that are not quite as strong as the teams that we normally would see in this tournament, are getting in. Now, looking at after we looked at the draw and we've had our teams made, for me, you could argue that there are easily three groups that you could word as the quote-unquote group of death. In Germany, we have Group C. In Group C, we have Germany, Poland, Ukraine, and Northern Ireland. In Group D, we have Spain, Czech Republic, Turkey, and Croatia. And in Group E, we have Belgium, Italy, Ireland, and Sweden. They're all 12 teams. All 12 teams are very, very strong. We also have to remember that this tournament is going to be missing teams like Netherlands, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Norway, and Greece, who are all very, very strong sides, especially that Dutch side. So my question to you is, where people are saying that this tournament is oversaturated at 24 teams, do we need to move it to 32 teams and make it something that's a little more even and make sure that these Netherlands of the world and these Bosnias and Herzegovinas get into this tournament?
No, I don't think so. At the end of the day, I think these countries only have themselves to blame, really, for very poor qualification campaigns. I don't think the Netherlands can have any real complaints about not getting into the Euros. It wasn't like they were cheated out of it. They were just very, very poor in qualifying. Bosnia, again, weren't good enough. Greece as well were absolutely dreadful in qualifying. So, I think that it doesn't matter how many teams you would have in this in this tournament. I think the bottom line is that they don't deserve to be in it. So I think having 24 teams is fine. I get the argument that some people have put forward, saying that it dilutes the quality a little bit, and it invites more sort of weaker teams into the tournament. But at the same time, it could still be a tournament full of very, very strong teams. But those strong teams have to live up to their reputations. They have to take qualification seriously and get the job done. And some of those countries just didn't do that. Notably, the Netherlands, Bosnia. The likes of Greece, and you mentioned Norway as well. These are teams with the talent to qualify for these tournaments, yet they didn't make it this time. And that doesn't mean that all of a sudden the structure of the Euros needs to be revised just in order to make sure that these teams get there regardless of whatever happens. I think that some of these countries, certainly the Netherlands, who did so fantastically well at the World Cup in Belgium, in Brazil. A couple of years ago, have now failed to qualify for the Euros. I think that hints at some very serious problems that they have to deal with over the next couple of years. So I think it's, a good lesson for them, to learn for the future so that they avoid this sort of thing happening once more.
Right. Now, with the groups in mind, now that we've had that drawn and set, who is your group of death and why?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think that there are any real groups of death. I think there are some very close-knit groups. I think if you're going to call one the absolute group of death, then maybe you could call Group C, as you mentioned earlier, Germany, Ukraine, Poland, Northern Ireland. But I still think Germany are by far and away the strongest team in that group. And then there's just three other relatively evenly matched sides. Otherwise, Group E, I think Belgium, Italy, Republic of Ireland, Sweden. That is a very enticing group. I don't think Italy were the power that they once were, but they are still a very good team with some very talented players. I think Belgium are a very talented team. Lots of fantastic individuals, but still a couple of question marks over the defence. As well as the chemistry of the team. So it's going to be very interesting to see which one of those two teams can top the group. And obviously, when you have a player like Zlatan Ibrahimovic leading the line for you, you can never write off somebody like Sweden. Perhaps bringing a surprise and finishing in the top two. I don't think they'll be able to win the group. But I do think if one of Belgium and Italy slip up, then I think that Sweden would have the quality to go through as one of the two teams that advances to the knockout round. But you've also got to remember that there's potentially 3 teams that go through in these groups, because there's the third place teams have a possible place in the knockout round as well. So I think it's going to be very close, because I don't think the Republic of Ireland will be walkovers either. I think they still have the quality to at least finish in third place in the group. But I do expect Belgium and Italy to take up those top 2 positions. So I think it will be a scrap between Sweden and Republic of Ireland to see who can finish third. But if for example, Italy, who have not been great at some recent international tournaments, fail to find form in their group games, then I definitely think that somebody like Sweden could finish second there.
It certainly makes that first match day in that group very, very interesting, with the Irish playing Sweden and Belgium playing Italy. We could have, defining moments right there in the first match day.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a bunch of very, very interesting fixtures that have been thrown up in this group stage, and I think that's definitely one of them. It's going to be really interesting to see how those fixtures pan out on the opening game. There's a couple of other matches that I'm very keen to see as well. England-Wales, in particular in Lens. I think that's going to be a fantastic clash, and that's one of the ones that I've really got marked down as a match that I don't want to miss.
Well, there's potential that I could be in Italy towards the end of this tournament, so if I am, I may try to find a way to make it up to France for one of these matches, and I'll be reaching out to you if that ever does happen. So I'm going to send you over to Rob right now. I know Rob has the Champions League and Europa League on his mind, so Rob, go ahead.
Yes, hi, Jonathan. It's nice to have you back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. So, for the 3rd consecutive time in the UEFA Champions League, we will have Paris Saint-Germain and Chelsea play each other. The 2nd consecutive time in the round of 16, and the 3rd consecutive time in knockout stages. First, I want to mention, how does it feel to go back to London again for a 3rd straight time?
Aside from boring, it's at the end of the day, there are very few games once you get to the knockout stage of the Champions League that you can really say are boring or not very appetizing. I mean, okay, at the moment when you consider Chelsea's form, it's difficult to get too excited about this right now. But if they have turned it around by the time the latter stage matches come back into play at the beginning of next year, then I definitely think that this game will be generating plenty more excitement. I did hope that PSG would draw somebody else. I was hoping for maybe Manchester City or an Atletico Madrid. I'm not a very big believer that it's best to play the so-called weaker teams at this stage of the competition when you get out of your group. I think that PSG already proved in their performance away at Real Madrid that they have improved from last year, and they are capable of taking the game to some of the bigger teams and perhaps being able to get a result. Obviously, they didn't at Santiago Bernabeu. A mistake from Kevin Trapp allowed Real to score. Edinson Cavani missed a great chance to equalise. I think the PSG should have come away from Madrid with at least a point. They didn't, but they put in a fantastic performance, and that will give them confidence going into the 2 games against Chelsea. And I think because of the fact that they know them so well from the last couple of seasons, the fact that Chelsea aren't in brilliant form at the moment, I think that PSG will fancy their chances of being able to beat Chelsea, and if not both games over the 2 legs, then at least one of them, and being able to go through more comfortably than they did last season on away goals.
Definitely, and I saw a stat this morning saying that Paris Saint-Germain have not won their last 3 matches against Chelsea. They drawn 2 and lost 1, so they definitely need to get this win heading into the match in February. And just speaking into the Europa League, obviously we have 2 French teams in the round of 32. We have Marseille taking on Atletico Bilbao, and Saint-Etienne taking on Basel. Are these two teams? Do these 2 teams have a good draw heading into the round of 32?
I think that they both have very difficult challenges ahead of them now. I think Athletic Bilbao are a good team that I rate. They have some very good players. You look at the likes of Arid Sadurith, who's in the form of his life at the moment, even though he's a veteran striker. So there are some dangerous players that Marseille are going to have to look out for, and the same with Saint-Etienne as well with Basel. it's not an easy draw for either of those two teams. I think I would probably fancy Marseille to be able to go through if I had to pick one of the two, but I think both of them are going to face very, very tough tasks. The big concern for Saint-Etienne is they've taken Europe more seriously this season. That's very pleasing to see. However, once again, we've seen that they just don't have the strength in depth to be able to balance both their domestic and European commitments. So they're struggling in Ligue 1 as a result. Way off the pace, not in the same sort of form that we've seen from them over the last couple of seasons. Yet they're doing better in Europe. So it's mixed signals from Saint-Etienne, and it's a bit frustrating. And I think that they're going to struggle at the beginning of next season to balance them once again. So I think that perhaps their domestic football should probably take priority now. They've gotten out of the group stage. That's good. That's progress made. But I think for Marseille, who have a bit more strength in depth, although they don't have too many attacking options, they have greater experience of these sorts of tournaments, especially with their coach Michel as well. I think that Marseille should be looking at beating Bilbao narrowly over the two legs, and perhaps going one or two rounds deeper in the tournament.
Yeah, there'll definitely be two tasty matches, that's for sure. Jonathan, I really want to thank you for coming on the show, and I'm going to pass it over to Joe.
Thanks, Rob. Jonathan, again, I want to thank you again for coming on as well. We've always enjoyed it and enjoy having you on. And I know we were a little pressed for time tonight, but again, we really appreciate everything you do for us, and want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a happy and healthy New Year.
Not a problem, guys. Happy holidays to you both as well, and thanks for having me on, and speak to you in the new year, hopefully.
You bet. Have a good night.
Thank you, Jonathan.
And that was Jonathan Johnson from BeIN Sports. I always love having him on. He's one of my favorite guests. So, it's interesting to look at the things that have happened in Paris since the attacks, and see how they've limited the people going to the matches and foreigners coming into that type of thing. But hopefully they get back to some semblance of normalcy moving forward. And to be honest with you, like I said, I'm supposed to be in Italy at the end of June next year. If I could ever find a way to sneak away and maybe a couple of days venture into France and see a match, I think that would be unreal. It wouldn't even matter what the two teams were. It would be something that it would just be a fantastic memory. So,
won't you be disappointed if there's a ban in place and you can't go to the game?
Yeah, no, definitely, of course. But them's the breaks. It's what it is. What it is, and but at the same time, if that didn't happen, and I were in Italy, around the time of the Italy-Ireland match, or hopefully if they qualify and move through to the knockout stages, that I get to see one of those in Italy and see them win a match. I just want to be in the environment when it happens, just to see what that feels like. I think that would be something incredible. So I'm really hoping, at minimum to be in the country when something good happens, and at maximum to actually go to the stadium, which would be unreal. So. But again, we want to thank Jonathan for joining us, and he's always a fantastic interview and a fantastic guest, and we'll always have him on anytime we can get him. So, Rob, I'm going to send it over to you, my friend, to give us let's start our league coverage, match of the week, and how we did basically in our predictions and our tables and scores going into the break.
Definitely. And so for the last time in 2015, we have the La Liga table. Our match of the week was Villarreal against Real Madrid. We predicted a 3-0 victory for Real Madrid. The result was a 1-0 victory, a goal from Roberto Solado in the 8th minute that gave the 3 points to Villarreal. As it stands on the table, Barcelona, despite the 2-2 draw against Deportivo La Coruña, is level with 35 points. Atletico Madrid in second with 35 as well. In third, Real Madrid with 30 points. In fourth, Celta Vigo with 28. In fifth, Villarreal with 27, and in sixth, Deportivo La Coruña with 23. Rounding up the relegation zone, we have Granada, Las Palmas, and Levante on 14, 13, 11 points, respectively. Top goal scorers, we have Neymar with 14 goals, Luis Suarez with 13 goals, Agirete with 12 goals, Perez from Deportivo La Coruña with 11, and Cristiano Ronaldo with 10 goals, alongside Aduriz of Athletic Club.
All right.
right, so let's take it over, France. Oh, one thing we should mention is there will be no Match of the Week segment for tonight, as we're going to be off for a couple of weeks, and it probably wouldn't make much sense to do that. So when we come back on January 4th, I believe the date is, January 4th, we will return Match of the Week and all the fun that comes along with that. So let's head over to France, to Ligue 1, and our Match of the Week this week was PSG Lyon, and I had predicted a 3-1 PSG victory, and I got a 5-1 victory in this one. Goals from Ibrahimovic in the 11th minute, Serge Aurier in the 17th, followed by a Lyon goal by Ferry in the 24th minute, but then closed out by Cavani in the 61st. Ibrahimovic on a penalty kick again in the 77th, and Lucas adding insult to injury in stoppage time in the second half. Statistical information in this particular match was possession 62-38 in favor of Paris. Shots were 11-8. Shots on goal were 8-3, which is a fantastic stat. Hitting target 8 of 11 shots is something that you don't normally see out in these matches. But PSG is certainly playing very, very well. You've got to think Chelsea's not going to be happy about playing them moving forward. So, in the league standings for Ligue 1, this is the final one of 2015. We have PSG leading the way on 48 points. We have upstarts Angers still holding that second spot on 31 points, tied with Monaco in third on 31. Caen on 30 points, Nice 26, Lyon on 26, Saint-Etienne on 26. Eighth place takes you down to Lorient on 25. Then we have Marseille and Rennes in the top 10 on 24 points each. Propping up the bottom of the table, we have Troyes on 7 points, Toulouse on 16, and Guingamp on 19 in the relegation zone. Tied on points, but outside the zone is Bastia on 19. Then we move up to Ajaccio on 21, Reims on 21, Bordeaux on 22, Montpellier on 22 points. And then rounding out the bottom 10 are Nantes and Lille on 23 points each. Looking at our top goal scorers in the league at the moment, Zlatan Ibrahimovic leading the way, 14 goals. Batshuayi at Marseille on 11 goals, with Mukanjo at Lorient on 11 goals as well. Edison Cavani on 10 goals. Hatem Ben Arfa at Nice on 7, with Germain as well on 7 for Nice. And then we have a slew of players down at 7th place, including Braithwaite, Delort, Lacazette, and Ninga at Montpellier. So that is our scores and tables for Ligue 1 for 2015. Mike, if you've got the EPL queued up, let's have you do it.
All right. The match of the week just ended a couple of hours ago. It was Leicester City versus Chelsea. We predicted 3-2. Final was 2-1 for Leicester, so we got the result right. Mahrez and Vardy for Leicester, and Loic Remy off the bench pulled one back for Chelsea. Final score 2-1 there. A quick look at the tables then sees Leicester City back to the top of the table on 35 points, followed in second by Arsenal on 33 points. Manchester City drops to third on 32 points. Manchester United is in fourth on 29 points, and in fifth with the last European spot is Tottenham on 26 points. At the bottom of the table still sees Aston Villa after 16 games with only 6 points. In 19th is Sunderland on 12 points. Norwich City drops into the relegation zone on 14, and just outside on goal difference is Swansea also on 14, and in 16th in danger of relegation at this point, Chelsea FC 15 points. Top goal scorers in the Premier League at this point. Jamie Vardy with 1 today has now moved to 15. Romelu Lukaku of Everton is in second with 12. Riyad Mahrez of Leicester also in third with 11. Agallo from Watford in fourth on 10th, and rounding up the top 5 is Oliver Giroud of Arsenal with 9 goals. Couple of quick hits in the Premier League this weekend. Romelu Lukaku scored for the 5th consecutive game, and while he has a way to go to equal Vardy's record, it will be an interesting storyline over the next couple of weeks. For the second time, Manchester City midfielder Yaya Toure has been voted BBC African Footballer of the Year. He previously won the award in 2013. And finally, Peter Cech equals the Premier League record for clean sheets as Arsenal claimed a 2-1 away win at Aston Villa. Cech matched the 169 clean sheets kept by former England goalkeeper David James. And that's it, Joe.
All right, Rob, over to Germany for the Bundesliga.
Yep, that's right. And in the Bundesliga for one last time for the 2015, we closed it out with the... sorry, I accidentally closed my my match of the week for a second.
You really closed it out.
Bayer Leverkusen Borussia Dortmund was the match of the week. We predicted a 1-0 victory for Bayer Leverkusen. The result was a 5-0 victory for Bayer Leverkusen. Goals came from a hat-trick by Chicharito. I believe in his... if you remember correctly, you said something about his 8th start or something like that?
No, it was Chicharito's first hat trick in Germany, and in some place I'd actually heard that it was his first hat trick in European football.
Oh, well, there you go then. His first hat trick in European football and his first hat trick in Germany.
And I think he's 8 goals on the season so far, so he's really playing very, very well. Louis van Gaal's got to be kicking himself.
Definitely, big time. And a brace from Stefan Kliesling to give all 3 points for Bayer Leverkusen. As the table stands at the moment, Bayern Munich still in first place with 43 points. In second, Borussia Dortmund with 38, just 5 points behind the German champions. The league isn't over, boys, not by a long shot. Hertha Berlin in third with 29 points. In fourth, Wolfsburg with 26 points. In fifth, Borussia Mönchengladbach with 6 points. With that win, Bayer Leverkusen goes to sixth with 24 points. Running up the relegation zone, we have Hanover 96 in the relegation playoff with 14 points. Hoffenheim and Stuttgart with 13 and 12 points respectively in the relegation zone. Top goal scorers, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who's been fantastic so far this season. Can you believe it? How great he's been so far this season, guys?
Amazing, absolutely. I think he hasn't scored in. I think it's either 1 or 2 league games all season.
Yeah, it's incredible. And out of those league games, they played 16 games. So it's just amazing. Lewandowski in the second place with 15 goals. In third, Thomas Muller with 13 goals. In fourth, the aforementioned Chicharito Hernandez with 10 goals. And in fifth, Marco Reus with 8 goals. And that's the Bundesliga.
All right, let's take it over to Italy, where our match of the week this week was Fiorentina-Juventus at Juventus Stadium. We had predicted a 2-1 victory for Juve, and not for nothing, if it weren't for Paulo Dybala, I would have gotten this one right on the money. It would finish 3-1, goal by Juan Cuadrado, and we're going to go with Illich's penalty in the 3rd minute to open the scoring for Fiorentina, and then goals by Cuadrado in the 6th minute, Mandzukic in the 80th, and Dybala in stoppage time in the second half to seal the deal in this one for the old lady. Shots on this one, actually ball possession was in favor of Fiorentina, 62-38, but shots were 16-6, and Juve had 6 shots on goal versus the 1 for Fiorentina on this one. So, obviously we shouldn't have written Juventus off. We never did, and lo and behold, they are really pushing forward here. They are the hottest team in Italy. But we're going to start at the top of the table with Inter on 36 points leading the way. Fiorentina and Napoli tied on 32 points each, both tied for second. And then in fourth, just 2 points back, Juventus, where they were knocking on relegation's door earlier in the season. 30 points overall. Fifth place, Roma on 29 points. Then we move down to Sassuolo on 26. AC Milan on 25 points. Guys, you can't write them off just yet, although they've had a little bit of a lousy run lately, including, again, this week. They ended up with a draw against Chievo with I believe it was a Luca Toni penalty to salvage the points there for Chievo. I'm sorry, not for Chievo, for Hellas. We have Atalanta in 8th place at 24 points. Empoli on 9th place on 24 points as well. The bottom of the table looks like this. Hellas Verona on 7 points. Then we have Carpi on 10 and Frosinone on 14. Then just outside the zone, Genoa on 16, Sampdoria on 17, Udinese on 18, Palermo on 18. 13th place gives you Bologna on 19 points. 12th place Lazio on 22, and then tied for 10th place are Chievo Verona and Torino on 22 points each. Top goal scorers in the Serie A, Gonzalo Higuain on 14 goals, Eder on 10 goals. Then we have Kalinic at Fiorentina on 9, Dybala on 8 goals. Then we have Carlos Bacca, Lorenzo Insigne, Miralem Pjanic, Gervinho, Icardi, Illich, and Paloschi at Chievo, all on 6 goals each, rounding out the top 8. And that will do it for Italy for the year, gentlemen. Let's go look at our Champions League information real quick.
Joe, can I just do a couple of MLS hits here?
Absolutely, please do.
It appears the Chicago Fire are getting close to announcing a new coach, and it appears Tab Ramos is the front runner to take over there.
Wow.
Ooh.
And one other quick note that I seen that I thought was interesting, especially since we had on Wizzo last week. Multiple reports are circulating that the Houston Dynamo are looking to trade Mexican striker Eric Cubo Torres. So we'll see what happens there. I imagine there'd be a few teams interested in him.
You know, Torres, I don't even think Torres really saw the pitch this year. And Mike, I don't know. Do you have any statistics?
He played a couple of games at the end, but there was it was held up because of
he was playing in Mexico.
But because of the Chivas thing, that where he came from, he wasn't allowed to come here until a certain point. So there was a lot of things in play there, but I guess he did play a couple of games at the end of the year, but I guess they are going to keep him. He's still
Mike, the Chicago Fire already hired a coach a month ago.
No, they didn't. They hired Nelson Rodriguez as the general manager. They're still looking for a coach.
Oh, okay. No, I just got something from one of our listeners saying that they've already confirmed the coach.
No, they haven't.
Okay.
All right. Well, there you go. I guess that's a.
If they have, I don't know who is it.
No. Yeah, it's Veljko Panilovic. Yep.
Yeah.
That guy.
Well, maybe they have then.
Yes, they confirmed. Yeah, he's right. They've confirmed it.
All right.
Veljko Panilovic.
So take that back then.
Yep.
All right. Still would have. Boy, that would have been tasty to have Tab Ramos there, huh?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up. Well, too bad then.
Yeah. So
maybe he'll emerge somewhere else. But I guess there's a lot of coaches with Petke and Christ out there, so he would probably be down the pecking order, I would think, with those two.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, let's go to our Champions League match of the week, which this week was the Wolfsburg Man United match, and certainly was an interesting one to say the least. Don't you think, guys?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, Man U really needed the win here to be able to advance, especially with PSV winning their match. We had predicted, and the reason I'm bringing this up because I was the one that got it right. I had predicted a 2-1 Wolfsburg victory. Rob, you took 2-1 United, and Mike, you went with the draw. We had a 3-2 Wolfsburg victory in this one. Anthony Martial opening the scoring for Man United in the 10th minute, to be followed by Naldo and Verinya in the first half to take a 2-1 lead to the locker room for Wolfsburg. In the second half, a Gulavogi own goal in the 82nd minute tied this up for the United. But 2 minutes later, Naldo scores a goal to take the points and eliminate Man United from Champions League play. Other statistical information in this particular match. Possession was 52-48 in favor of United. Shots on this one were 16-10 in favor of United, 7-6 on goal in favor of United. So, just as a quick 2-second thing, Mike, you cover the EPL for us. I know you'd predicted a draw in this one, and if I remember correctly, you kind of just threw it out there. What do you think of United's play overall in the Champions League this year?
Not very much.
I would agree. We talked when they went through the group draw. We talked about how United got such an easy draw and an easy group, and they could only manage to finish third and head to the Europa. It's shocking for a team that has that much money, that much talent, that quote unquote good of a coach. If you had to point a finger, Mike, would you point a finger at one particular spot, or do you think there are multiple areas that need to be addressed?
I would point the finger at whoever's spending $250 million and bringing in the players they got. I made this point with Robert in the interview that's coming up.
That's right.
You spend $250 million. Where is the superstar?
Right.
Anthony Martial is a good prospect, but for 250 million euros, you should have, I think, some better players than that.
Agreed. So, Rob, I want to ask you the same question. What are your thoughts? And again, I know this is coming up in the Robert Burns interview, so I don't want to give too much away. But just your quick thoughts on it.
Yeah. As Mike said, not much. Honestly, they were definitely one of the favorites to win the group. That's for sure. A so-called easy one with Wolfsburg, PSV, and CSKA Moscow, but they just couldn't get the right amount of points. They lost in the opening game, then they drew. They won at Old Trafford, then they drew at Old Trafford, and they end up losing. at in Wolfsburg to end with a 2-2-2 record. So they could have done better. I feel that maybe the injuries have played a little bit of a problem, but there's so many things that could be happening. They definitely need a refresh now, and who knows? Let's see what they can do in the Europa League.
I was surprised that they didn't play Wayne Rooney in this one. I don't remember him being injured, but he didn't start in this match. He wasn't even on the bench. So.
And then they need a goal and they substitute Nick Powell for Juan Mata.
Yes,
really?
They made the double switch there. It was not only there was a second player that they brought on. It escapes me right now. I closed out the box score, but there was a second player that they brought on where it was like I actually have to go look at it now because it was kind of mind-boggling.
Well, there's no way if I based on this year, especially if I need a goal, that I'm bringing off Juan Mata.
No, and he was one of the better players, I thought. It was Nick Powell and it was Michael Carrick came on for Mata and Schweinsteiger in the 69th minute.
Okay, so Schweinsteiger might be fitness, and Carrick is a suitable replacement, but Nick Powell for Juan Mata?
That was crazy. Oh, and the other part was Matteo Darmian. I'm sorry, Marco Darmian went down with an injury.
Matteo.
Oh, it is Matteo.
Matteo.
But he went down with an injury late in the second half. Late in the first half. And they brought on this kid. I'd never seen him before, Borthwick Jackson.
He was on the bench. He's been on the bench a couple of times in the EPL, but I don't know who he is either.
18 years old.
Yeah. I mean, do you bring an 18-year-old defender into a match on the road where you need points?
I don't know. They play Tyler Blackett and stuff too. I don't get it.
And they were down.
You spent £250 million. I don't think Tyler Blackett should be seeing the field.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then: can you win anything with kids?
No.
He's trying to pull the old guy on Liverpool from Match of the Day that said that once.
Ellen Hansen.
Yeah.
But not at this level.
You can win with some kids, but I don't know. Don't you wonder how you spend €250 million and Tyler Blackett is playing? I do.
No. You can win a game.
But can you
and you can win.
Games
You can win some games inserting these guys out in and out here and there.
Yeah,
but having to use them,
no.
Depend on them,
no. And that's where they were at that moment in time. They were in a moment where they depended on somebody. And that's what they did. So, I don't know. I mean...
People keep assuring me that Louis van Gaal's a great manager, so I'm just going to defer to them on that, because some of his substitutions really leave me happy, actually, as a non-Man United fan. But
I agree. So, gentlemen, with that in mind, the end of February is going to bring us Ghent Wolfsburg, Roma Real Madrid, PSG Chelsea, Barcelona Arsenal, Juventus Bayern Munich, PSV Atletico Madrid, Benfica Zenit St. Petersburg, and Man City Dynamo Kiev. Of all of those 8 matches, Mike, I would like to know which one is the one you, and again, without saying City, because, so you leave City out of it, Rob, you leave Barca out of it, and I will leave Juventus out of it. Keeping that in mind, what match do you want to watch the most, and which match do you want to watch the least? Mike, you first.
City. I don't know. Barcelona and Juve.
They're not playing each other.
No, Barca Arsenal.
I'm sorry, Bayern Munich and Juve.
Bayern Juve. Okay. Rob, same question to you. Oh, and which match do you care about the least? I'll give them to you again. City, Kiev, Benfica, Zenit, PSV, Atletico Madrid, Juve, Bayern, which you already said is the most. Arsenal, Barcelona, PSG, Chelsea, Roma, Real Madrid, and Ghent, Wolfsburg.
Yeah, there's more than one there that I could care less about, but the Zenit match and the Ghent, Wolfsburg match, they don't really appeal to me.
All right. So, Rob, same question to you. The one match that most intrigues you, keeping Barca, Arsenal out of it, and the one match that you could care less about.
Well, I'm really fascinated to see this PSG-Chelsea game, as Jonathan Johnson mentioned. I think it's going to be quite a battle to see what Chelsea can do to forget about their domestic campaign, their bad domestic campaign. So that's definitely the match for me that I want to see a lot. But the match that I don't want to see, Yeah, just have to agree with Mike and say Ghent Wolfsburg. I think that's going to be a walk in the park for Wolfsburg.
Yeah, I agree too. For me, the one that I'd want to see the least, I think, is Benfica and Zenit. Although I think it will be close. I think Zenit will probably win that one, and overall, there's just not enough star power there to keep me interested long enough. I think the one match that I'm most intrigued about is the one you said, Rob, PSG Chelsea. I have to keep Juve Bayern out of it. Of course, I want to watch that. But PSG Chelsea really interests me because, to me, Chelsea didn't play badly during qualifying. Really, their issues have been domestically, and will they be able to, turn their fortunes around and maintain their ability to play well in the Champions League and midweek, or are they going to lay over and die like they've been doing in the EPL all year? And if that happens, this is going to be one-way traffic at the Parc des Princes. It won't even matter what the second leg brings. So I really want to see that match first.
And let's be fair here. They had you said they played well during the group stage, but yeah, look at the group.
Yeah, they had a pretty easy group to go through, and they were still on death's door in the last day too.
Well, and that, which is even more. Yeah, no, they're not doing nothing for me against PSG.
Yeah, you think they're going to just roll on them?
Yeah, I don't really think that they've had a good UCL campaign here. They got lucky. Their best part of their campaign was the group they got drawn into.
Yeah. For me, the other matchup, and I think for me it's the Jekyll and Hyde aspect of this. Chelsea to me is Jekyll and Hyde. They're a team that is good enough to win the EPL. They're a team that is bad enough to be relegated out of the EPL right now. Do you know? For me, Roma kind of holds the same intrigue. Roma, keep in mind, Roma drew Barcelona at home. Now they're going to get this Real Madrid side who lost over the weekend, although, granted, this is a December result versus a end of February result. But Roma is another Jekyll and Hyde team for me. They can either play lights out and just totally overwhelm you, or they can just lay, keel over and just lay there, and they've done that this year in Serie A. So,
okay, Joe, let me ask you this, because this was a question I asked Robert in the interview coming up, which he kind of didn't answer the way that I asked it.
Okay.
I asked for him a team that made the Champions League that shouldn't be in it, and a team that didn't make it that he thinks should be in it. So let me ask you that question.
Makes it to this level?
Who made it to this round of the Champions League for you that shouldn't have probably made it, and who didn't make it for you that probably should have?
Okay, who made it that probably shouldn't have is probably Ghent. I think Ghent is that team that almost don't belong. PSV.
But Ghent got, for me, it's got to be Roma. They got 6 points in 6 games, and then you look at a team like, I believe it's Porto, who got 10 points in 6 games, who's just got to be like, what the hell?
Yeah, Porto, I think Porto, you're right. Porto definitely should have been there, but for me, Roma...
They got 1 win, Joe.
Yeah, but they were in a group that also had Leverkusen and Barcelona.
Okay, well, Leverkusen's not that good, and they're in a group with Bate Borisov, who they didn't beat 2 times.
Leverkusen put 5 on Mönchengladbach over the weekend.
Okay, that's 1 game. That can happen anytime. Bayer Leverkusen is not one of the top 10 teams in this draw.
No, they're not one of the top 10 teams.
Well, Roma should be able to beat them a lot handier than they did. And they didn't beat Bate Borisov. They only beat them by 1 point.
I'm not entirely disagreeing with you, but I don't think, when you look at Ghent came out of a group with Zenit, Valencia, and Lyon. Lyon was
but they got 10 points, though.
Yeah, but
you can't argue that they did get 10 points.
Yeah, but look at that group. That group is god-awful. Chelsea.
Well, Zenit almost made UCL history by going through undefeated, so they're obviously not that terrible. Valencia's a decent team. Lyon's a decent team. You can make an argument that Roma's in an easier group than that.
No.
Oh, yeah. For me, you can. Easily.
I don't think so. I mean, I haven't gone into the FIFA.
What do you think, Rob? Are those 2 groups that much dissimilar in terms of what you would think?
Well, you can't really compare Barcelona, Roma, Bayer Leverkusen to Zenit.
Okay, so just throw Barcelona out and throw out whoever you would Zenit from there. Are Ghent, Valencia, Lyon that much different than Roma, Leverkusen, and Bate Borisov? There's not that you could make it seem that Lyon, Valencia are better than Bate, Borisov, and Leverkusen.
Yeah, it's a
They're
tough
similar groups. For me, Roma really disappointing to only get 6 points out of that group.
And they only got through because of goal difference. That's
exactly. And then they only got through because of that.
No,
exactly.
they didn't get through because of goal difference. They actually had a worse goal differential than Bayer Leverkusen. The difference is that Roma beat Bayer Leverkusen 3-2. And Leverkusen did not. I think Leverkusen won their first match, which was Bate.
Okay, but I still think you need to take your Italian bias out of this. That was a very disappointing campaign for someone like Roma to get 6 points.
But Roma head-to-head against Leverkusen drew them 4-4 and beat them 3-2.
Okay, that's fine, but they still only got 6 points and had to get qualified through a tiebreaker. That can't be a successful campaign.
Oh, and I'm not saying it's successful.
We all know that their campaign's going to be over anyway.
I mean, I don't.
And then you brought up Ghent. I'm saying Porto. That's the team I'm saying. Ghent made it. Porto didn't. That's who I'm comparing. I think
should have made it.
For the team,
that's all. Leave Ghent out because they actually made it on their own merit. They did get the 10 points, but Porto also got 10 points and is out of the Champions League.
No, that's true.
That's what I'm comparing. So for me, that was the question. I'm just, if you don't think it's Roma, you don't think it's Roma. For me, they're the team that escaped through here.
I don't think it's Roma. I think Roma of these, and I'll just go back and look at the 16 teams. For me,
I want you to look at the point totals and where they finished.
Right, but
you can say Roma's better than Ghent, but that's not my question.
But I'm saying Roma's better than a few of these teams. Roma's better.
But that's not my question. It's just based on the group they're in. Who shouldn't have got in that did, and who should have that didn't?
But then you can't really say that because they qualified through their group. I mean,
yes, I'm just saying. For me, Roma, is
let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, the worst qualifier out of all of them.
They had the worst group campaign. Okay, I could say that.
But one win.
Yeah, one win.
And 11 goals for and 16 against.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. That's not very good for me.
No.
So, I'm not saying that. I just said, it was just a question. It wasn't a disparaging remark on Italian football. It just happens to be that's the team that I don't think should be in.
I mean, that's the group that they qualified through. I think in terms of quality of team, Ghent for me.
No, but it's not Ghent. It's Porto that I'm asking. Ghent's in. They're both in. So don't use Ghent. Because the question is, what team should have got in that didn't?
And that
was the question.
That's Porto.
Right, okay. And then you want to say Ghent's the team that shouldn't be in that is.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I get you. Okay, fine. That's fine.
Yeah, that's,
What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, 100% agree.
Which way?
That Porto should be in and Ghent shouldn't.
Okay.
Right. So, but that'll do it. So again, we'll bring you we'll bring you match predictions obviously as we get much closer. These teams are going to evolve as we get closer to the Champions League play in February. So we have a whole transfer window to go through. So going to head over just to give you the match of the week that we had chosen in the Europa League was Fiorentina Belenenses, which was I don't even have the match loaded here yet, but in this particular one I had predicted a 3-0 victory. Rob, you took 1-1, and Mike, you took 2-2. And it was a 1-0 victory for Fiorentina with a Babacar goal in the 67th minute on this one. Statistical information was really one-way traffic for Fiorentina. They were in possession 64 versus 36. They had 22 shots, including 6 on goal versus 4 shots and 1 on goal for Belenenses. And Fiorentina qualified for this. And you're present for qualifying. You get to play Tottenham. The final 32 teams, the matchups currently here are Valencia, Rapid Vienna, Fiorentina, Tottenham, Dortmund, FC Porto. Again, we just talked about Porto. That's probably the most enticing matchup of this round. Fenerbahce, Lokomotiv Moscow, Anderlecht, Olympiacos, Michelin, Manchester United. Thanks for the layup, UEFA. Augsburg, Liverpool, same thing as United. Krasnodar, Sparta, Prague, Galatasaray, Lazio, Sion, Braga, Shakhtar, Schalke, which is another great matchup, if you ask me. Marseille, Athletic Bilbao, Sevilla, Molde,
Bayer Leverkusen, Sporting Lisbon. That's another tasty one. Napoli, Villarreal is a good one. And Saint Etienne, Basel. Those are your 16 matchups for the round of 32 in the Europa League. And again, play starts the last week of February. So, gentlemen, without further ado, I think I'd like to play the Robert Burns interview for our listeners. Any objections?
No, not at all. Play it.
All right. So, without further ado, here's our interview with Robert Burns. Joining us now on Low Limit Football from World Football Daily, the former co-host of World Football Daily, is Robert Burns. Robert, how are you tonight?
I am doing great. How are you guys?
Fantastic, fantastic. We're glad to have you aboard tonight. And I want to kick it off, not necessarily with a soccer question. I want to kick it off with a poker question. As I
blondes.
found,
Definitely blondes.
Yeah, my question is much easier than that. It's twofold. It's twofold. One is, what is your favorite poker game to play? And two, where is your favorite place to play?
Wow, playing poker. Let's see here. Where is my favorite? I'm a home game guy. I mean, you know what? I don't do a lot of the casinos anymore. Unless you're in Vegas, then it's kind of the full experience. I just don't do it as much as I used to, except for I love home games. So get to know all the people. I would definitely say that that's pretty much where I do all my poker now.
Okay, and your favorite style of poker to play?
Definitely Hold'em.
It's definitely Hold'em.
Just straight up Hold'em. Yeah. The other stuff, when you start talking about Omaha and stuff, my brain just doesn't work that fast.
I mean,
it really doesn't. I know my limitations. I can handle figuring out Texas Hold'em. Once you start getting a little bit more complicated, more cards get out there, my brain just can't wrap itself around all those different possibilities. That's just not how it works. So I like to keep it simple. So just Hold'em.
2/3 of this,
but I do love the game.
I was going to say 2/3 of this team is degenerate gamblers, so we're always interested. And
I'm in any game, anytime. Let me in.
I've been playing for a living for 10 years now, Robert.
Have you?
Yeah.
It's I remember being around when I was at Fox Sports when the whole online boom and then bust when everything went illegal. That was a really amazing time, actually, being around how they tried even to monetize poker in that sense back then, because they took that rise. It was almost like UFC-esque. And they took that rise, and all of a sudden we had a poker site, and I would go and play with the guys. We had a poker page at foxsports.com, and I would go and play with the guys that were the writers for that. I learned so much losing my money to those guys. So it was a very interesting time to be around all that stuff, and that was, when we were going to casinos all the time and playing 4 or 5 different nights a week. I used to actually host a regular game at my place as well. So, it took an amazing rise and fall, and all that stuff was really, really fun to be around at the time.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I'm in Canada, so I can still play online.
Oh, really? Oh, that is so sweet. Actually, that is a really good gig. I would love to be able to do it, but like I said, I know if you're doing it professionally, man, you are. If you're making money at it and that's how you get your life doing that, then more power to you, because that sounds a pretty awesome lifestyle, actually.
That's a hard way to make an easy living.
Yeah, exactly. But I used to, doing, online sit and goes until 6 a.m. Just to finish on the bubble. Great. Thanks a lot. That was awesome. So, good time. Very fun.
So I'll bring it back. I'll pull it back into soccer here,
okay.
And I'm going to pull it all the way back into the United States. And I'm going to open with a question. Obviously, over the past week, just before the MLS Cup final, the board of directors had their meeting, and they decided to expand to 28 teams. Now, Atlanta United has already been on the books. I believe they come on board in 2017. Word came out that they were in pursuit of Marco Fabian, who is currently at Chivas, but are going to face competitions for Fabian's services from some of the German teams. Fabian coming to the United States at 26 years old. I guess he's going to be 27 soon. Is that starting to signal, along with the Giovinco acquisition last year, a trend to more of the younger, more exciting player, where MLS is going away from that quote-unquote retirement league?
Well, hopefully. Yeah, clearly. I think even a better correlation for Marco Fabian would be the Gio dos Santos move, because that's the one where, if he is still being able to keep his play up at a level, and that remains to be seen, because remember, he has been more or less left off the national team for various reasons ever since he moved to LA. So you don't know if it's, what's really going on there. It can't really necessarily be his form entirely, but other guys have really stepped up for Mexico, you have to admit. Yeah. And Gio, after a very nice start in Los Angeles, certainly tailed off a little bit, but there's reasons for that as well. But I think that the move is more of a signal. If we're just talking about Mexico, I think it's clear to see there's no reason to believe that, in the course, if you see how the growth of MLS has been in the last 20 years, there's no reason to think that it can't continue in that direction and eventually rival Mexico, who's still well ahead of us. Right. If part of that is kind of that crossover and getting those Mexican stars here at a much better age than we did when Blanco was here, or a completely inept Neri Castillo when he was here, and those kind of acquisitions. Mm-hmm. I think just in general, though, there's a multitude of reasons why players of those younger ages are going to see not just the money, but the money is obviously going to be the main part. But now that we have money to spend, we can get those kind of Giovinco type of acquisitions. But it's also a question of the lifestyle. You watch a lot of what's going on in Europe, or especially even in South America, players not getting paid, fan violence, crazy. There's all sorts of stuff that those guys get to actually come to the U.S. and not have to worry about. If you look at somebody like Federico Higuain, he loves, from what I've read, he absolutely, utterly loves Columbus lifestyle. He just gets to kind of live his life. He doesn't have to worry about the same kind of dramas that he gets as a professional footballer back home in Argentina, for example. So there's a lot of different reasons. Mainly it's the money. Let's be honest. The reason that these guys are going to be able to come here is because as the league stabilizes and starts profiting a little bit more, and they're going to spend more money. Everybody says they're not, but they will, because they realize this is America. In order to make money, you have to spend money. And the guys that are in the position to make this happen, they realize that better than anybody.
Right.
So I think we'll see a lot more of those things, because they realize that those younger stars is going to change that perception. But I also mentioned that today on Twitter, that was something that, reputations die very, very hard in football. Mm-hmm. And the U.S. is a retirement league. The U.S. is I hate the term, soccer nation, is pretty much always going to stick around, or at least for a very long time. There are people who still, when they talk about Italy, they still talk about Catenaccio. Okay? Those reputations in football die very, very hard. The only one that I can think of that's actually gone away is the fact that Spain, before Euro 2008, used to be the biggest chokers in the world, and now they win everything. So that's the only one that's actually changed. People don't talk about Spain that way anymore. Yeah. Other than that, most every other old one pretty much sticks around, and I'm sure the U.S.'s retirement league isn't going to go away. Even if it's not factually true, the perception always will be that way, and that's fine. It doesn't really matter.
Well, to expand on that, obviously, when you look at Giovinco before he, I guess, kind of became what he is right now, he was really just a bench role player at Juventus. So, and he's obviously come over here to dominate the league, won the MVP, so on and so forth. So, So let's go to the next level. That next player who is probably not necessarily a bench player at a big club in Europe, but somebody who maybe starts, someone on the younger side, on the south side of 30, who would be that next guy that you think might make the move to MLS and really take the league to that next level of bringing those top stars here to the United States?
I mean, I think you just said you still have to be realistic. Mm-hmm. Okay, anybody, if you're talking about a move that's going to be earth-shattering, a la Beckham coming here in that sense. I mean, at the time he was 31, but that's an earth-shaking type of move. Right. Let's be honest, you're not going to get that, and that that's not necessarily going to happen. What you're looking for, though, these are your two main, big moves that you're trying to do. You're trying to find South American players who are, again, tired of many different factors, mostly never getting paid and worried about family members getting kidnapped and all the shit that happens down there, right. Which is just it's a fact of life. And a lot of these guys, there's so much talent in the Colombian league and the Chilean league and the Argentine league. There's so much talent in there that's getting first-team football, and you can actually tempt to come up here. That's probably the problem is that doesn't necessarily move the big-time PR needle. because you want the big European name stars. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, look, we're not going to get guys that are, you're not going to tempt, Ivan Rakitic to leave Barcelona because he can go to Chicago and make, you're not going to get those guys to do that. If they have, I'm talking about the top clubs, those people are going to stay. What you're looking for are the kind of guys that are under 30 who are basically kind of down in the pecking order. They still have lots of talent, but they're on stacked teams, like a situation like Jovinko was, basically. He wasn't going to get a look in. That's not to say that Jovinko couldn't have been traded to any other team in Serie A and been a starter, without a doubt. So I think that it's kind of disingenuous to say he was a bench player for Juve, a Juve that went to the European Cup final.
Right.
But anywhere else, he would have been a starter probably in just about any other, outside of, Milan, or forget about Milan, even, Napoli or wherever.
Yeah, you stick him on Lazio.
He would have been playing. Yeah, he would have been playing. So the point is that, you have to be realistic, I think, about these things. If you're going to get the big star name players like the Zlatans, which, could still happen, those are the names you're going to get. They're going to be the ones that are over 30. You have to find the guys, and again, I don't know right now off the top of my head to say who is sitting there, not getting the kind of playing time that they want, that maybe they could somewhere else, but they're just not getting it. And you know what? They want to take a flyer on the adventure. Those are the guys that you actually tempt with a little bit more money, because they know their stature at whatever club not necessarily being a first choice, that's not necessarily going to do wonders for their transfer fees. So why not go get paid in the U.S. and have a good lifestyle? That's just the reality of where we are right now. You have to be realistic about where it is, and that's perfectly fine. It still is going to create a better league for us year by year as it continues to get better and better.
Right. As I'm sitting here listening to you and going through it, one name had popped into my mind that I was going to bring up to you as a guy under 30 who has actually done it in Europe and is currently in South America, and that was Alexander Pato. But then as you continued on, a better name jumped into my head. A name that if he came to MLS would certainly stir the drink that is MLS. Mario Balotelli.
Right.
25 years old.
Yeah, for sure.
Certainly can score. Got the star power. I mean, sometimes for the wrong reasons. Everyone recognizes him.
Sure.
But would
I like the Pato idea better.
Yeah. I think I do too. But for the play, but for the drama, it's got to be Balotelli.
Well, again, any publicity is good publicity, right? So
exactly.
It's going to be it's going to be rough, and Balotelli coming to MLS, I mean, he would be crucified already, more than he already is, the poor kid.
Yeah.
Every little thing. If he actually did that, you can just imagine the kind of stuff that would come his way. And he's a sensitive kid, but he did. From this perspective, from the things that he would do, if you couldn't keep him under control, in the sense of, following the rules or just kind of not doing all the crazy stuff that he did, it's certainly you're not going to put shackles on him here, because he's not going to have the same kind of, respect for a coach like he would, he was flying in the face of Mancini when he was at City, and, you think he's going to actually listen to Ziggy Schmidt. It's going to be a little bit problematic, I think, in that sense. And I don't know if the risk, you'd certainly sell some shirts, and there would definitely be a big interest. But for how long? That's the whole problem. You never know when he's going to just kind of come in and then disappear for a while, and all the uproar that would go with it. Now, when you talk about somebody like Pato, who had a great start, a lot of promise, and then obviously with the injuries and everything that was going on behind the scenes at Milan, there's a man who kind of took his medicine, went back down to South America, been flourishing at Sao Paulo, and that's a guy who maybe he seems to have gotten his fitness back, and he's been scoring a lot. So yeah, there's everybody always sits there and wants to pretend they know everything that's going to happen in advance. We always want to say that, I've learned to embrace the term, I have no idea. He could come back and it could just be a total disaster, and he could get injured again in 2 games and turn into Daniel Sturridge, or you never know. I mean, there are redemptions all the time if you think about it. Look at what happened with Arjen Robben when he left Real Madrid. Everybody thought he was over. He was glass.
Right.
And sure, yeah, he still gets hurt, but don't tell me that you've never ever seen a player, or very few, that have turned on the jets and become better players after 30, after an injury history, than they did as Arjen Robben. So it does happen. Everybody wants to think they know exactly what the future holds, but they don't. The upside of somebody like Pato, who's been, getting it done down there and staying healthy, and on top of that has top European level experience. So that would be a great thing. But I honestly think if Pato leaves Brazil, I still think he would be going back to Europe somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
I would think that would be something that any team would be. For me, again, and I can understand all the reasons why people say it would be a bad move, or a risky move. But for me, I think it would be one that would be worth trying, because he's also not going to get an extravagant fee. If he came to America, it would be an extravagant fee. If he goes to, I've even considered him, looking at Manchester United's scoring problems. If you can get him cheap and try it, why not? So I think in that case, yeah, there's again, this boils back to which kind of guys the league should be looking for, and I think it's more that kind of not getting enough playing time, but right side of 30. And South America. Those are the ones that we should really be looking for. And of course, never lose focus on what our main goal was from the beginning, which was to make sure that this is also a place where American players are going to get opportunities. And as expansion happens, there's pros and cons. A little bit it's diluted, but we also, with more teams, have more chances to let Americans be on those teams and find one that's going to come out like Clint Dempsey did, kind of out of nowhere, out of Furman when he was with New England. Like, nobody really expected that much from the kid, and he turned into arguably our second best ever player. So if you have more opportunities and more teams for those guys to kind of have a chance to kind of step out and do those things, then the expansion is also a good thing as well. So there's a lot of layers to what we're looking for, and that's why I hate terms like retirement league. Like, that's not the only thing that the league is looking for, to bring in guys that are 35 years old for a last hurrah. That's one tiny little aspect for name recognition. There's a whole other process that needs to go on in order to bring this league where it needs to be.
I agree. I'm going to send you over to Mike now. I know Mike has a bunch of questions, moving you over or across the pond to England. So, Mike, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, Robert. Thanks for taking my questions tonight.
No problem, man. I was looking forward to this.
I'm going to start or take you over to the Champions League and the three English teams that are still left and the one that isn't. But first I wanted to ask you, were there any teams that you thought should have got through or deserved to get through that didn't?
Yeah, Manchester United. Of course.
You wanted them to get through, but did they really deserve it?
Yeah, well, clearly not. I am a big United fan, so I probably look at it a little biased and kind of pay a little more attention to what's going on there than anything else.
I'm a big Man City fan, so we should get along great.
Yeah. So I think that they're everybody is kind of losing, to me, a little bit of perspective. It was last year, taking over what happened with Moyes before, and the objective last year was simply one thing, and that was to finish top four and get into the Champions League. Anything else would have been a bonus at this point. So when you looked at the draw, yeah, they probably should have gone through. But let's face it, the team has scoring issues right now. And again, issues, and I also say right now, I don't think that this is something that's going to last forever. I think that there's, definitely, every team hits different kinds of, I don't want to say droughts, but, in this particular case, that seems very apt for what's happening at United. So, I think that there's kind of a long-term plan in place, and I think that a lot of people are so quick to, because it is United and there's so much schadenfreude. I mean, it's just like how they jump on any single thing that Man United does wrong. Like every fan of every other team in the world that hates United and it's hated them for every single year that Fergie was there. They're all just coming out of the woodwork and trying to tear them apart, and that just creates this domino effect. And it's not as gloomy as it seems. I think that the objective, like I said, last year was get into the Champions League. This year, it's more about the title. And right now they're exactly where they need to be in terms of that. I mean, if you look at all the struggles that the team has had, even with all the struggles, they are 1 point behind. I consider Arsenal league leaders because I know Leicester's not going to be there after New Year's Day. So there's not the same doom and gloom that everybody tries to pick. Now, they do have to fix some things, absolutely. But did they deserve to go through? No. And that's okay, though. Like I said, it's now it's just a question of do they take the Europa League seriously? And I think that's an interesting question mark as far as how Louis van Gaal is going to approach the Europa League for United. But hopefully they do take it seriously, because the problem with the Europa League is if you don't win it, it doesn't mean anything. So the only team everybody says, oh, it's really important. If you win Europa League, that's a big deal. The problem is that, at this stage, 31 teams don't win it, and everybody's like, that year was a wash.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Looking at the table now and seeing where they are, does Manchester United have a better chance to win the Premier League or finish outside the top four?
Well, I would definitely say, like I said, I think they definitely still have a chance to win it. First of all, it's not like anybody else is really separating themselves, are they? I mean, Chelsea's obviously way gone. Their best bet is going to be top 6, top 5, and I think that they'll probably do that. But if you look at every other team, it is a constant back and forth between, they look fantastic for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they lose games. So at the end of the day, it's not like anybody's stepping up and running away with this thing. So I think that this year it's kind of anybody's guess. So why not United? And again, boils down to my point with all of the problems that they've had this year, to still be in that position. They've only lost 2 games all year. Sure, they're getting too many draws, but at the end of the day, if those start turning into wins in the second half of the season, they're in a prime position. They're not in bad shape by any means. You can start getting these guys back from injury, and if the team, just starts, a lot of blame goes. Everybody's pointing it to Louis van Gaal. You're talking about the guy who was, you look at all the success that Barcelona and Bayern have right now. He was behind so much of that. It's not like the guy doesn't know what he's doing. I always love how many people sit there and want to try and tell him that he's won as much as he won. How to do things. It takes a while, and he's got an entirely new revamped squad. Again, you can call these excuses if you want to, but that's just the reality. If you follow football for 20, 25 years, you see cycles in teams. There was also a period, people always forget how easily, every single year, under Sir Alex Ferguson, they won everything. No, they didn't. The mid-2000s were terrible United years, but nobody else really stepped up in the Prem, so they still finished second, third, whatever. They were still good enough to do that, but they were miserable teams. You're talking about the David Bellion, Jemba years and all that stuff. Those was not pretty times for United either. So, people kind of lose that perspective, and they just live in this nostalgia that, United was every single year exciting and winning every game. It's not the case. We just look at it that way. And I just think that if you've followed football for a really long time, you know that there's going to be ups and downs. And the reality is, after Sir Alex Ferguson left, if you weren't preparing for cycles of up and down for the next decade or so, then you really didn't understand what was going on, because it was always bound to happen. You don't just lose the best manager in the history of club football and all of a sudden everything just kind of carries on where it used to be. That's not the way it works.
I guess the problem for me on the outside looking in at Louis van Gaal is he spent €250 million this year, and outside of Anthony Martial, who looks to be a decent prospect, who did they really get? Like, what world-class player did they get for $250 million?
Yeah, well, I mean, that also speaks to how outrageous overall the fees are in England and how exaggerated costs are going to England. But for sure. But again, I think it remains to be seen in a lot of ways what's going to happen with all these guys. I mean, Memphis is a young kid. Everybody wants to kind of come down on him. He's 20 years old. He's changing leagues, who knows? And to have the pressure that you have at United, not everybody's going to step in and, pull a Fernando Torres at Liverpool. Remember when he first came on, boom, it was just like he was off to the races, and it was amazing to watch that kid. Even though he played for Liverpool, it was amazing to watch when he first came on. Not every new player to the Premier League, especially coming from a league where, let's face it, Eredivisie is kind of famous for making, strikers probably look a little bit better than they are, and then when they get somewhere else, they don't really show up. So, not in every case. Again, mass generalizations are a completely stupid thing when it comes to football. You have to take each one individually. So, I of course, it's hard to see that, but you also have to realize that if any team can afford to spend, it's one of the top 3 revenue generating clubs in the world still. So they can afford to do it. And are I think a lot of the choices that have been, it's December, it's the first half of the year. I get it. There's been a massive turnover at United. I don't think Darmian has been a bad purchase, for example. I think he's done really, really well. Obviously, Blynn's done pretty well. That he's kind of secured that spot where people never expected him to be. I think a huge loss this year for United, and one that's really been a big issue for their supposed struggles. Again, it was losing Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw, and when Memphis was playing well, it was because Luke Shaw was with him and giving him spaces and just pushing up and overlapping like a sumbitch. He was just all over the place. And then all of a sudden, when he went down with the leg injury, that's kind of hampered a lot for sure, because he was playing unbelievably well, Luke Shaw, and was a big conduit on that left side. So, there's been injuries. And I'm not trying to defend everything he does. I'd much rather see a lot more of Ander Herrera, who has been great when he's had his chances. I'm still very split on the whole Rooney situation. I understand why people want to kind of, let him go and move on and stuff like that. But I also, like I said, you've been a United fan long enough. You've seen Rooney up and down. You've seen him, have these periods where he was completely inept, and then all of a sudden, boom, he scored 1, and then he scores 10. But now he's at 30 years old with the wheels of a 35-year-old because he's played so much for so many years from such a young age. Is that going to be the last time? I don't know, but it's hard for me to lose faith personally. And I'm not telling everybody else what to think, but for me personally, after having seen all of his rises and falls over the years, I think, for me, still give him the benefit of the doubt. And I still think that the team will come together. I think once that offense starts to click, and as far as the other purchases, I don't think Schneiderlin has been terrible at all. Schweinsteiger, I think, has been in a lot of games very commanding, a little slower than you'd want probably, but he's, the injury fears and things like that they had about him, he's come through. So, I just think that there's a lot more doom and gloom than people kind of need to feel. And I think that by the end of the season, if they're holding up the trophy in May, then nobody's going to care about how many 0-0s there were back in December.
I'll be jumping out a window, though.
Think of what everybody else will be doing. If with all the problems United has, if they actually hold the title, people will be so mad. It'll be so great.
Speak for yourself on that one. I'm going to switch over to Arsenal now and down to London. Again, Arsenal survived. With their backs to the wall, they always seem to somehow find a way to get through. After the match, Theo Walcott said that Arsenal can beat anyone in Europe. But after the first 2 matches of the group stage, the opposite's also true, that probably anyone in Europe can beat Arsenal. For you, how good is this Arsenal side, and how far deep do you think they can go in the Champions League?
Everything just depends on the draw. They could easily end up against Barcelona. So then they're not going to go very far. There's so many different, I always find it funny how much until the draw we don't know anything, because it's not like how we do sports here 1 through 8. And so we know, when you're watching the NBA playoffs or something like that, that best team has a really darn good chance of being that 8th place team. And you already know it from the last game of the season. When you're talking about European draws, there's so many cases where a team finished second and ends up in the second pot by goal differential or something. And they might have been every bit as good as the other team that actually won the group. If not better, but, by some fluke goal differential. Now all of a sudden, now you've got a Juventus or an Arsenal or whoever in second place, as they are right now, and that's going to be some bogey team where somebody in Group A is going, oh, God, I don't want to pick Arsenal. Because when they're on, of course they're fantastic, and it's hard not to like watching a player like Alexis Sanchez, for example. Cazorla when he's on. They do have an enjoyable team to watch, which I hate to admit, but they do, and that's just the way it is. But they also just have that I don't know if you want to call it a lack of belief or it seems like there's always that thing in the back of Arsenal, like back of their heads, that like at any second one thing could go wrong, and then the whole thing just snowballs out of control, and then they lose. And every time it seems like they should be in a position poised to really dominate and dictate something, the opposite happens. So, there's a reason why they've had the trophy haul that they've had over the past 10 years. And now, here's the ironic part. How many years did they go between the Invincibles and the next trophy, right? Something like 8 years until they won the FA Cup 2 years ago. What else did they do 2 years ago? They started spending money. So it's all correlates. This whole thing that they were doing before, and it was all noble, and yeah, your finances look great, but you're falling behind because you weren't doing what everybody else was doing, and that was actually proving successful, which in today's day and age in football is spending money. And once they started spending money with Özil, with Sanchez, is now you've seen, oh wow, they got trophies now. Now, are they in a position? I don't think they can win the Champions League. I think when somebody says, "Oh, Walcott says that," well, I would hope your player would say that. I'd hate to have somebody. What did I just read the other day? Like Mahrez over at Leicester said, "We can't win the title," and he's absolutely right. But I don't think you necessarily want to hear your players saying that. So I completely understand why Walcott says what he says and all that. And do they have the ability to? Sure, of course. There's no on their best day, but their best day has to be pretty much every day, all the way to the final. And if anything we've learned from Arsenal is that succession of brilliance rarely happens. It happens for a decent amount of time, and then there's a collapse. And this is not fabricated, because like I said, you can look at the trophy haul. They've always been, not always, but many of those times in the past years they've been in really good positions. And then come February, come March, they've had some kind of collapse. And at the end of the day, the biggest thing they're celebrating is fourth place at KO stage and being ahead of Tottenham. So that's happened too many times in order to call it just coincidence. So is this the year that changes? I don't know. But I can tell you this, that they have every ability this year to win the Premier League, and they should. Because they're not going to have a better chance for a long time, I don't think. But I don't know what's going to happen, but I could definitely see the same type of slide come February, come March, and then it's the same thing all over again. Then Wenger out, Wenger in. What do you do? Is it time to move on? I think they had a chance to really pull the trigger when Klopp was available, and that would have scared the hell out of me if they would have actually pulled the trigger and said, thanks, Arsene. It's been a wonderful, what has it been, 16 years or whatever it's been now. It's been a wonderful 16 years, and but if Arsenal would have gotten Klopp, that would have been something very, very scary as a United fan. But I just don't know exactly. I think they have every capability of playing really, really well and playing some amazing football. But it's just a question of doing it long enough and consistent enough in order to win. And depending on who comes up in the draw is going to. We can have that conversation after the draw, and then you can have a lot better view of how it's going to go.
Arsenal will be a great team if the season just ended at the end of February.
Yeah, they'd be good. They'd be fine every year. They'd be doing great, No.
Okay, now I'm going to. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I got nothing else.
Okay.
I got nothing.
Okay, I'll switch us over to Chelsea now. After yesterday's game, Jose Mourinho said that Chelsea's a team that teams would want to draw in the knockout stage. Do you agree with this? And who are some other second place teams that or first place teams that the second place teams might want to draw in this round for you?
Wait, you're saying Jose said that Chelsea is a team that other teams would want to face? Is that what he said?
Yeah, they would want to face Chelsea right now in the knockout stages. Are there any other teams like that for a second place team?
Well, let's see here. I'm trying to run through the list in my brain right now. Let's see. Well, like I said, Arsenal
maybe a Zenit
as a second place team. Zenit is going to be very, very tricky at home. Yeah, Zenit would be very tricky at home. Like I said, I'm just racking my brain here. You don't happen to have a list right now? Give me all the second place teams.
All right, hold on a second. Okay, well, let me ask you this one while I call that up. Who would be some of the teams that finished second that the first place teams would want to avoid for you?
Well, okay, clearly
We've got
Barcelona,
PSG,
Bayern.
we've got PSG and
I don't
Juve.
think those guys are really. Those guys aren't worried about anybody. Juve's in Group B. That's an interesting one. Dybala's playing really well. I just don't. I think Juventus had all of its kind of luck last year, and they, many changes, and they got off to a slow start. Things are definitely better with Juve, but I don't necessarily think. Again, it'll depend on the draw, but I think they're definitely good enough to be a quarterfinal team. But I don't think they'll have the kind of rub of the green that they had last year. They played really, really well last year, but like I said, things just kind of have to fall your way. And that was kind of this, up until the final, everything was like this kind of perfect storm of them getting through and just doing exactly what they had to do. And they had, with Tevez, with Pirlo, they had such a nice balance to that team. And Vidal obviously being the engine. I mean, that was a really, really good team, fun team to watch. And I just don't see that same type of magic happening this year. Like I said, the other big boys, I don't think they're worried about anybody. Bayern, PSG, obviously Barcelona, they're not going to be thinking about anybody. Everybody else is just worried about them for sure.
Because PSG finished second, so some of the first place teams are going to end up drawing
was
them.
PSG second? Yeah, see, like I said, I've been
they finished behind Real Madrid.
Yeah, it's like yeah, exactly. One of those things I gotta once again I kind of tune out until the draw happens, and then all of a sudden there it is. Like then it becomes more tangible, Make that part makes a big difference for me. So, but yeah, I think that there's definitely going to be some very intriguing matchups, I'm sure. But like I said, the Zenit one is also pretty interesting.
Another team that finished top of their group that maybe for you some of the second place teams might favor drawing would be Wolfsburg. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. It's
considering it's better than Real Madrid, Barcelona. Those they could all be in the same pot. So do you agree that Wolfsburg might be one of the lower place teams in that first pot?
For sure, yeah. I find it that is definitely a team that can be a bit hit or miss. They're definitely good. I don't think that they're necessarily any kind of clear favorites to do anything. It's a team that, again, very, I don't want to say inconsistent, because I just think they have a lot of new pieces this year, and they're kind of, they're kind of pilfering from some really good players from around the league, from around the Bundesliga. And Hecking's a good coach. I don't necessarily know if they, I think it's kind of one of those situations where they might just kind of be happy to be there. I know the fans are like, wow, we actually, nobody kind of maybe expected this one. Maybe finish second. I think they're very surprised to be there. I don't necessarily think that they have the guns to make any kind of a big splash. But yeah, certainly that's a team that anybody in second is going to be, not too disappointed to draw in it. But you also have to remember that, look what they just did to United, who, was kind of up against the wall. So they certainly drew a lot of new confidence, I would imagine, from getting there, where, they also had a lot of pressure on them in that game to get a result at home, and they did it really, really well. So, I don't think that it's a foregone conclusion that they're out of it, but I also just don't think, I don't see them having enough manpower to pull off any kind of big surprise depending on who they get. So, but we'll see. Like I said, man, with the draw, that just tells you everything you need to know.
True. Okay, now we'll go over to the good half of Manchester, the blue half, that is. And despite their poor showing in the first half yesterday, Tuesday, I guess it was, Manchester City played brilliantly in the second half to finish top of the group. Assuming they play with some of the form or the same form shown on Tuesday, are they a team that can win the Champions League for you?
No. I mean, look, I just don't think I think your usual suspects are going to be there. So I don't think that there's going to be any big surprise. It's either going to be, the only one that might crash the party in the final to win it might be PSG. PSG is a really, really unbelievably good-looking team, if you ask me. Depth-wise, just top to bottom, I just think that they're really, really excellent, and they've just got nothing but free time because they're just stomping over the rest of the league on. So they're not really having any problems. They can completely and utterly focus on Champions League. So they might be there, but other than that, you're either going to have, you're going to have Barcelona, you're going to have Bayern, or you're going to have Real Madrid. Maybe I don't see Atletico necessarily making another big run like that. But certainly can play spoiler to anybody. So I think that those teams, they're going to be there. Man City, you're talking. I just don't know. They have this again. It's like that typical or current typical English Jekyll and Hyde personality. They just. Some moments they look like world beaters, and then all of a sudden it's just there's problems at the back, and there's I'm not necessarily completely sold on the defense right now. I think obviously offensively that with De Bruyne and Sterling seems to be coming good, and as long as Aguero can stay healthy, they've got no issues necessarily up front as long as and David Silva's back from his injury, and as long as all that stuff's up there, they're going to win a lot of games, and they're going to be solid, and they'll have a chance from an offensive perspective to kind of run with anybody. But when you get to the back, with company and it just seems like there's so many up and down games that happen for the back, and it's never like everybody is playing really, really well. It's always, one or two, and then the other ones are having a bad game. And when they're all on, then they're a very, very good team. But I just kind of still think that back line kind of lets them down too many times. And of course they've just had a lot of, same with United. It's the same thing. It's like when you're losing your guys up front, like Aguero, like Silva, I mean, those are huge losses, and you're not getting a lot from the backups in terms of scoring there. So I think that they've got every chance to maybe do one step better than they did, than they've ever done before. I mean, I think that they might, again, depending on the draw, I could see them getting to a quarterfinal round, but anybody that they're going to meet from there, it's up in the air. I mean, all these things are just kind of too hard to say right now. I just don't see them necessarily having that type of, belief to kind of get through. And I, personally, I just don't find Pellegrini to be the guy to do it.
Yeah, fair enough. And given our history in the draw, you just know we're going to draw PSG in the first knockout stage.
You probably. Well, I definitely think it's going to be Arsenal-Barcelona in the first in the round of 16. That was one that I kind of was like pinning on. So that one's definitely got to happen. But yeah, like I said, Man City will give anybody a good run, and they're certainly capable of getting quarterfinals, maybe semifinals. I just think that once you get to that point, I just don't think that they're going to have the type of consistency or belief necessary to do it. But it's football, man. It's a crazy thing, so anything can happen. That's the beauty of it.
All right, fair enough. Thanks a lot for taking my questions tonight, Robert. I'm going to give you to my co-host, Roberto Rojas, up in Connecticut now.
All right. Thanks, man.
Hey, Robert. It's nice to have you on the show.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. My first question to you is, having seen the dominance that Bayern Munich and Barcelona have been doing in their respective leagues so far this season and overall the calendar year, the questions I've always wanted to impose to basically one of our experts here is that if those two teams had to face each other tomorrow in the Champions League final, who do you think would be the victor?
First of all, if you want me to go find an expert, it's going to take me a while. I'm sure there's one around here, but it's not. Give me a little bit. I'll go find somebody. But I'll pretend in the meantime. If they were playing each other today,
their strongest team. What's their strongest team?
I was going to say, I just don't think that there's anything. Sadly enough, because I've never been I know it sounds crazy. I'm not a big Barcelona fan. But even if you're not a Barcelona fan, there's no way you cannot respect, what they do and how they do it. So I just think when you look at that front line, I mean, what do you? There's nothing you can do to stop it. I mean, Messi, Neymar, and Suarez is just one of the most ridiculous attacks that's ever played this game. I mean,
this is the South American influence you're talking about. That's the
it's a beautiful thing.
Influence you have in European football.
Sure, and it's this beauty. It's this amalgamation, right? It's the Brazilian, the Uruguayan, the Argentinian, right? And then, of course, right across in Madrid, you've got the European one. Now you've got Bale, you've got the Frenchman, the Welshman, and the Portuguese. You know what I mean? So it's like these two very, very different schools going on there as far as where the influencers are coming from, and clearly Barcelona's taken maximum advantage of it. I think that if you play those two, but Bayern is also incredibly strong, and they did a number again a little while. What was it, 2 years ago when they did that number on Barca? It was 7-0 or something in the semifinals when the year they won it. That was again, but it's very far removed from that. That's ancient history now. So now when you put the two together, boy, it's really, really, really hard to say because Bayern is pretty flawless, top to bottom. I mean, look at the form that Lewandowski's in, and Lewandowski. When you put Müller, who is one of the most intelligent young footballers around, who has this ability to find spaces and to free up spaces and find spaces, and when he gets to those places, he knows what to do with the ball every single time. And with Lewandowski running off of him and those interchanges, and they just and obviously the emergence of Costa, who's been just a huge threat on the left. I mean, the idea of watching Costa and Dani Alves would be a beautiful thing to watch. I mean, there's so many just tantalizing matchups that would be so great to see. Watching Neymar against Lam would just be a phenomenal thing to watch. So all these different possibilities there, but I think it would be an incredibly close one, but I would definitely have to say that right now I just don't see. I have a really hard time, and as much as I hate to admit it, seeing anybody stopping that front line from Barcelona. I just think that they'll score when they want to. They're so unselfish. The unselfishness between the three big scorers is what's most amazing. They score so much because none of them is afraid of giving up the goal to somebody else, and it in turn comes back to them. So that's why that they're all benefiting from each other, because that fluidity of the three of them up front is, and of course there's very you still have Iniesta in there, and Rakitic is obviously playing well, and Busquets is, as much as he falls over, he's still a very good metronome in the middle and kind of gets the job done. So they have really good backup as well. So I would definitely begrudgingly give the edge to Barcelona right now.
You can't deny the fact that this is one of the this could have been a potential shortlist for the Ballon d'Or, but if only a certain Portuguese wasn't on that list. But just going to my next question. Thank you so much for taking my questions. With the emergence of Neymar being a part of Messi, Ronaldo for the shortlist for the Ballon d'Or, are we seeing the potential that we might see the next best player in the world in that Brazilian after Messi and Ronaldo are done with their said rivalry?
I mean, it's
as the favorite,
bet against it.
As the favorite.
Yeah, for me, it was he's proving me wrong, obviously, but not necessarily in the very beginning. I was always against the idea of him going straight to Barcelona. I was always a big believer more in the middle step. That it was almost like too much too soon walking into that team at his age, and if you look at the steps that somebody like the original Ronaldo or even Romario before him, when they left Brazil, they went to Holland. They took this kind of let me get this introduction to European football and stuff. And with nowadays, even with more pressure, because back then there was no social media, there was no 24-hour videos in your face about what you were doing and your private life and your taxes and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's crazy to think that Maradona was like shooting a pellet gun at reporters outside of his house back in the 70s, like that kind of stuff. Can you imagine what kind of an outcry there would be today if somebody was shooting pellets at the media? It would just
Twitter would break.
What's that?
Twitter would break.
Yeah. Oh my God, it would absolutely get suspended for sure. Yeah. So when you look at how everything has changed in that sense, and then you put the pressure of going from Santos and going straight into the top team in the world, one of the top teams in the world and stuff, and it did take him a while to find his legs, but credit to him, with all the stuff going on, he has not faltered, and he has actually gotten obviously better each year. So you have to give him a lot of respect for that. Like I said, it's his choice what he did, and I didn't necessarily. I think he would be an even better player had he taken an intermediate step, because he still would have had his pick of the litter after that. I'm sure Barcelona wouldn't have been, unwilling to try getting him back if he'd gone and played at, let's say a Benfica or a PSV or something. Just to kind of be familiarized with European football. But despite the knocks he took in the beginning and the growing pains, he's obviously worked his way into it pretty immensely. And as far as future player of the year, it'd be silly not to guess that he would definitely be up there in the running for that. I don't know if necessarily the kids that were supposed to be coming up to kind of rival him haven't necessarily made those big jumps. You've seen a little bit maybe of regression, perhaps, when you're talking about somebody like Eden Hazard or James Rodriguez. These were the guys who were supposed to kind of be that next step. Even Bale, even Gareth Bale has been, you remember the talk around Gareth Bale when he was at Spurs, and what he was doing was, you saw a lot more. And that's not to say he's done horribly. He's obviously been an integral part, but you don't get that same kind of buzz. And I always thought, for me, part of what happened with Bale, which was always, it was always kind of poorly planned, I guess, was that he always excelled on the left side, and Ronaldo excelled on the left side. So to me, it was always going to be somebody was going to be giving something up. If you think about it, Bale started as a left back, moved up to a left midfielder, and then moved all the way up to a left winger when he had his great success. All of a sudden, you change that around. So again, and these are professional footballers; they should be able to adapt and change roles and all that. And I get that, but it seemed to me, with all the expectations on him, to put him in that situation and say, "Hey, now all that you've done and everything you've been for years on that left side, now we're going to throw you on the right, and we expect you to have the exact same results." It's a different ballgame on that side, especially when you're in the shadow of the guy on your own team. So those other guys, I think that Neymar is also profiting from the fact that the other guys haven't necessarily kind of made the same strides as he has in order to kind of keep up. So it actually makes him look even better as a potential candidate for Player of the Year.
Definitely. I've been following him ever since he won the Libertadores 4 years ago, and now he's just grown into this fantastic player. When he was working in the, I guess you could say, the streets of Brazil, to one of the best players in the world, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's got to do with getting rid of the silly haircut.
Well, he's out of.
I think that's a huge part.
And,
yeah, I think that's.
And just one last. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, just one last thing before I let you go is I wouldn't be River Plate right now if they're going to take on Barcelona in a few days for the Club World Cup.
Right.
So you got to see what those South American teams are going to do.
It'll be fun to watch. I haven't actually. It's funny that it starts up tonight, doesn't it, or tomorrow?
It started tonight. It started.
It's what is it? Some team from New Zealand against Zamalek or somebody. Who's playing tonight? I
believe, Mike, you were watching it, right?
It started at like 5 a.m. this morning, Robert. It was the J League winners against the Auckland team. Yeah,
so Auckland City. So who was that? Who won the J League? That was
Hiroshima.
Urawa? No,
Hiroshima.
Yeah, Hiroshima.
Yes. Gotcha. Okay, so yeah. It's so funny.
It's in Japan, so it's on at really weird hours here. And if you're on the West Coast, I guess
it's worse.
If you stay up late, you might get it at 2 a.m. But it's like 5 a.m.
Yeah, I'll probably jump in at the semifinals. There's so much going on.
Definitely.
I don't. We try and pretend that every tournament has the same. Yeah, of course you love football. You're going to watch everything you can, but. Let's face it, there are certain things that are going to take priority over others, and now that I'm no longer necessarily working, every day having to cover every single thing going on, I can be a little bit more selective about what I'm doing, and time-wise, obviously, there's other things going on. So I'll probably jump into that one a little bit later, but that should be fun too. But yeah, I just something about all those tournaments.
Just so you know, the next game is going to be on Saturday, and it'll actually be at 11 o'clock time out west, PM, that is, and that'll be America versus I believe it's the Chinese team, Guangzhou.
Guangzhou.
Okay.
Oh,
Saturday at 11 for you.
But I think the only key game that would be worth watching if it happens would be Barcelona against River Plate in the final. I think that would be the only key match.
And that'll probably happen. And actually, 11 for me on Saturday is totally not going to work because I will be utterly drunk. It's my birthday on Saturday, and my girlfriend will take me to this wonderful place. It's too early, but that's okay. But I'm going to be completely and utterly drunk, so that will be on the DVR maybe the next day. So just letting you know. That's definitely not happening Saturday night. Definitely not.
Thank you, Robert, for answering my questions. I'm going to pass it over to Joe.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, man. Good talking to you.
Robert, I just want to bring the conversation full circle as we started with poker discussions in Las Vegas, and we ended here with J League playing times because of the Club World Cup and all that stuff. I watched the opening game of the 2002 World Cup at the bar in the Paris in Las Vegas. It was 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And they were serving coffee instead of beer.
Perfect.
But the bar was full.
Sounds like an awesome place. Although the outcome probably didn't make everybody happy there, I'm sure.
No, of course not. But speaking of Paris, I'm gonna close with my final question because we really didn't get into any FIFA shenanigans. And there's comic material from FIFA for ages. I want to talk about Michel Platini, who at one time was a great footballer, but he's been suspended by FIFA. Can't run for president. There was talk that came out that they were going to lift that suspension so that he could throw his hat in the ring. I guess, in your honest opinion, is there anybody in their right mind that would vote for this guy at this point with everything that's come out?
Unfortunately, there probably are.
Yeah.
Again, you don't get into that position. He's a famous player. He's been, he's obviously wielded a lot of power, which he showed. Everything that's coming up this summer for Euro 2016 has been wielded by Platini's power, so he still has it. For me, it's been almost shameful, some of the things that he's been able to get away with. Number one, and I know some people like it, not for me, a 2014 European Championship is ridiculous. It's already perfect. It's exactly perfect with 16 teams.
Right.
You get the top two, it goes straight to the quarterfinals. It's condensed. You don't have all the filler games. Now all of a sudden we've got all these other guys in there, then it's just going to be a diluted product and third place teams and all that kind of mess. And it's unnecessary. And it's of course to make money. And the fact, obviously getting it in France. The other part that he had France actually playing friendlies, but they were in a group, so they were getting, you know what I mean, when he switched everything around. So France was actually getting the benefit of playing, quasi-meaningful games for other teams. That whole thing was just all barbarically crazy, and obviously his inability to explain with any kind of clarity what was happening with the money that was being glad handed between him and Blatter. I think it was like $9 million or something like that. I can't remember the exact figure. But whatever that was, obviously no paperwork, nothing. Oh, really? For that much money, you don't have any kind of record? You don't have anything? So it's very, very clear that there's tons of shady stuff going on. And for me, Blatter is, or Platini, unfortunately, is not any bit better or going to, help clean up FIFA in any way any more than Blatter ever would. So I don't think he belongs anywhere near it anymore. But at the end of the day, the problem is that, we're in this culture now, and I mean, we're going to tear down every single candidate. We are going to unearth every single tiny little thing that we can about every single person who's going to be in this role. And here's going to be the disappointing part. Nobody's going to be perfect. Nobody is going to be the exact right one for the job. Every single person constantly, this is the social media age. There's never anything without controversy, because you can dig up and blow up one tiny little thing that happened 25 years ago and blow it into such a shitstorm that everybody's like, well, obviously that's, that person couldn't possibly have changed in 20, whatever it might be. We dig up so much dirt on every single candidate that we're never going to find, especially in a corrupt type of monopoly, whatever you want to call it, of like FIFA. You're never going to unearth somebody there's never going to be anybody perfect for the job anymore. It's just not going to happen. Right. So whoever does it, everybody has their issues, and who do you trust? There's really tons of reasons to mistrust almost every single candidate, and especially when everything gets dug up about them all and where they're getting their money from. Any multi-billionaire has probably gotten his hands dirty somewhere along the line in order to get it. So I think we're setting ourselves up for failure as well, because we're constantly thinking that we're going to find some diamond in the rough, some angel who's just squeaky clean and spotless and has every answer for every possible question, and just it's not going to happen. So our expectations also need to be a little bit adjusted and realize we're going to get the person who can, hopefully with some type of integrity, at least bring in the public eye the standing of that organization back to some level of decency and effectiveness. This is just something that you can feel that they're doing what's best for the sport again. And again, I just don't think that any of the candidates are necessarily going to prove to be 100% that revelation for it.
Right. I think the best candidate for the job would probably be Attorney General Loretta Lynch.
Yeah. It's pretty funny, actually. It is amazing, like, for the first time, like, in how long you ever heard people, like, applauding the U.S., people who were so fed up with FIFA over in Europe and stuff, and they were like, finally, what UEFA or any other organization couldn't do, Loretta Lynch is doing with the DOJ, and, you actually saw people, like, applauding the U.S., but at the same time, be careful what you wish for, because, if you bring down this entire organization, there's a lot of things about football that might change. And then all of a sudden people are going to get upset about that. So just remember that, yes, it's absolutely mandatory to clean it up. And, but part of that might also be making some sacrifices about, what happens with the game and, little changes here and there. That's probably an inevitability that's going to come with any kind of major reform within FIFA. So, there's going to be, but definitely, the organization itself needs to be cleaned up. So let's hope that they can find somebody who can at least put the right people around them as well. It's very important that they, make sure that there's a lot of people that are actually doing things for the betterment of the game.
Right. Robert, I want to thank you for going way above and beyond tonight and giving us so much time. We really greatly appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back again soon. It was a fantastic discussion. I was just telling my co-host that I left like half a dozen questions on the table because we got into so many things that I could have asked you a million more, and we'll have to save it for another night sometime soon. But
is that just your nice way of saying I ramble?
No. Well, the thing is that the problem is that, okay, well, if you ramble, then I ramble, because I took one question, which was my Marco Fabian question, and we ended up finishing with Mario Balotelli. I mean, I asked one question, So
I'm getting drunk Saturday night. It sounds like you were already drunk tonight. So it worked out perfect.
No, we'll do that Saturday night too. Trust me. So, but thank you for joining us.
Make sure you guys let me know when you got a good home game going anytime soon.
Absolutely, you're invited every time, man.
Perfect.
All right, thanks again. Have a good night.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye.
And that was our interview with Robert Burns. He was a fantastic interview. I almost felt like
I had insulted him there for a second, because I didn't want to suggest that. I wasn't suggesting that he rambled. He was so awesome with his answers that he was so detailed with them that, like I'd said, I started that one question with Marco Fabian, and I finished at Mario Balotelli, and it was just great to kind of dive into it and let the question lead us around to what we talked about, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, we've been talking to him for like 15 minutes. I asked one question. This is crazy. So he was awesome, and I loved it. And I want to wish him a very happy birthday. He's been retweeting a lot of our stuff today, so I'm pretty sure he's sobered up from his birthday party. But he was fantastic. And again, I want to have him on again very soon because he's the kind of guy that can dive in. He's almost like Christian Hennig, where you can just start talking to him about any league in the world, any player in the world, and the guy's like, yeah, I know about that. So he was awesome. I don't know if you guys had any other comments that you wanted to add to that, but go right ahead. Feel free.
No, it was a fantastic interview, as you just mentioned. I hope we have him on very, very soon.
So, with that in mind, we only have one order of business left for 2015, and that is our trivia question. So, Mike, if you would do us the honors of giving it to us one more time.
All right. Romelu Lukaku recently scored his 50th English Premier League goal versus Aston Villa, becoming the 5th player to score 50 Premier League goals before the age of 23. Can you name the other 4?
So I remember the bottom 2 on the list. Okay.
All right.
The one that he tied to get on the list was Cristiano Ronaldo.
All right.
Okay. Rob, I'm sure you have the other one, so why don't you give him one other one?
Wayne Rooney.
All right.
He was the other one on the list. And from there, I don't remember. But it was the top 2 guys that were missing, including somebody that I want to say it was 92 goals. And I just can't place the damn name. And it's going to drive me batty.
Rob?
Michael Owen?
Michael Owen was one of them. Yes, he was 3rd.
Okay.
But we're missing number 1.
You are.
Yeah, and it's 90. It's like 92 goals, right, Mike?
Robbie Fowler.
Is it 92?
Robbie Fowler is correct.
Robbie Fowler. There it is. Those are the 4. Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Wayne Rooney. So
yes, sir.
And I'm just mad at myself for not absolutely getting them right because I saw it on the screen. They flashed it when he scored the goal. So, all right. But, gentlemen, before I hit the closing music, any last comments that you want to make? Mike, I'll start with you before we close out 2015.
No, just thanks for listening and have a good holiday, everyone. Be safe.
Rob?
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. So for me too, for everyone out there, all the guests that we've had over 2015, the wonderful interviews, the great time that we've had, the time I've spent with you guys week in and week out, really making me think more about this beautiful game. I want to thank you guys and wish the 2 of you and your families a very, very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. And to all our listeners that tune in and week out, the people that download this show every week, the people that listen live that are in our chat, I also want to wish them a very safe, happy, and healthy holiday. And hopefully 2016 will be even better than 2015 was to you. So with that being said, here's the final music. And for episode 102 of Low Limit Football, I would like to thank again Jonathan Johnson and Robert Burns for joining us and giving us a great interview. The show will return. It will be January 4th of 2016. We are also planning in the new year. I'm sure we will do something with Two Daft Yanks again. We're also going to do something with the ULF Podcast Boys. So, for episode 102 of Low Limit Football, I'm Joe Usello.
And I'm Roberto Rojas.
And I'm Mike Orr.
Thanks again for listening. Have a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thanks, everyone.